Disclaimer 1. All parties are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Do not contact or harass anyone mentioned in this video. Disclaimer 2. This video talks about crimes and activities of a violent and disturbing nature. Viewer discretion is advised. Disclaimer 3. This video should only be viewed by those 18 or older. We talk about some pretty serious subject matter, and minors should not be present for these discussions. What you are about to see is an interview with Emily Jones, also known as EmuEmi, Saberspark's Accuser. Now, I want to be extremely clear and upfront about the contents of this particular interview. Emily Jones is a person who has had a controversial history on the platform, and so we offered her an opportunity to speak on her own controversies to the wider public. The crux of this interview is her addressing her own controversies. I believe that Emily Jones should have the right to talk about her own controversies and essentially establish her own character, as her character is tangentially related to the matters at hand. I also want to address something in particular. Most people who have been introduced to the Emily Jones lore seem to have been introduced via one particular documentary, this one right here. The Google document trying to unmask Emily brought it up, and it's what both KP and my team did find first. Whatever you believe about Emily Jones, whatever she says, this documentary is particularly bad and particularly biased, and should not be used as a resource. That being said, I would recommend doing your own due diligence and not taking anything anyone says as immediate fact. If something sounds suspicious to you, look it up using more reputable sources. This video will not be censored in any regards. As a disclaimer, the opinions of Emily Jones are her own. They should not be seen as reflective of me or the investigation team, towards anyone, not just Saberspark. I will at least be adding context via editing, but I am cutting nothing out. Timestamps will be added in the description down below if you want Emily's statement on any particular controversy. Stuff. Everyone's okay with this being recorded and published?
I'm totally good with that.
I consent.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I
I'm
can.
all good.
I consent to that as well.
I am a consenting adult.
Alright, I have started my recording, so now no one knows that we all consented.
I also started my recording after we all consented. Damn, we're gonna have to consent again.
I have been
joking.
recording.
I'm joking. It's fine. All right. So, Enter. You said you wanted me to try to spearhead things, or do you want to ask your personal questions, or what?
I think, I am not good at leading interviews.
That's why I'm here, because I've done this before.
But I suppose so people don't get confused, we should all start with, like, introductions. This is gonna be on my channel, so people know who I am. Who are you guys?
Do we just start at a semicircle, or what? Start at the front and then the back, or whatever?
Lizzy, who are you?
I am a lazy bedhead. I make things on the internet, and I do interviews with people on the internet. And I will be helping in this interview today.
And Phineas, who are you?
I am the one and only Phineas. I have been looking into the this little universe, we're gonna call it, for many months. Yes.
These two have been helping me with this, I guess it's an investigation, people are calling it. They're not the only people, but these have been the two people who have been talking to me and the Accuser, and let's get your introduction.
My name is Emmy Jones, or EmuEmi, and yeah, I do music and voiceover and stuff.
Okay.
So, Emily, how long have you actually been doing, like, content on the internet?
Technically, right after I graduated high school, but it was, like, terrible YouTube covers I made, like, with my parents' iMac computer, and it was, like, a terrible, like, trash can microphone.
I wouldn't even be embarrassed. I still edit everything on an iPhone, so don't even be worried about it.
It's good content, though.
Thank you! It's just funny to see people's reactions to that sometimes, because they are like, what, are you fucking crazy? And I'm like, yeah, I am, a little bit. A tad.
Yeah, that is kind of insane to edit everything on an iPhone.
I'm poor, so this just kind of works out for me. I know that doesn't sound poor, having an iPhone doesn't sound like a poor person thing, but it's an older generation, if that makes it any worse for anybody else. But
I just can't imagine the precision for your videos. You know, it's like
it's just a lot of sitting in my bed and just kind of like fingering my face phone for a while until it's done. But in case anyone is concerned, I'm not the one making this video. Just double checking for everyone's aware.
Yes.
I won't be fondling this video on my phone today.
That will be my job. And for the final obligatory question, Emily, you are coming forward out of anonymity of your own free will, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. Those are the obligatory questions. Lizzy, you may begin.
So,
okay.
I think we should start by just going...
I will also state to the audience who is listening, this is not exactly the first time that we had this conversation.
No, it was just important that we had it, like, for the record, so that if anyone wants to ask about it, reference this interview here.
Right.
Yeah.
So, let's start at the very beginning. At least the beginning of your whole YouTube career. I would love to start. So, EmuEmi is a name on the internet that people in both the MLP community and the Sonic community know fairly well. For both good things, most of it being Sonic and Tails R, which was a fan-made radio show that actually was in collaborations with people over at Sega, aka like Ryan Drummond, Mike Pollock, voice actors and such. And a lot of people, I think it's mostly just like people on Reddit, Kiwi Farm, the gossip sites, have painted a not so great image of your character. And for our investigation, that's not something we can just ignore, because as of like May 7th, I say recently, it's a couple weeks ago, Casey Fisk kind of brought that up as a reason against you not to even believe you. But I think it's only fair for the sake of journalistic integrity that we get your side on that, because if all of this is just either something that has been, taken out of context, I feel like the full context should be available for people to have in front of them so they can reference and draw their own conclusions. So, let's start with what you are most well known for. And that's gross to say, but that's what people kind of point to, your big number one thing. Ryan Drummond. Drummond? I don't know how to... Yeah.
Drummond.
So,
yeah.
You have been friends with Ryan for a bit. You guys worked on Sonic and Tails R together, and around 2016, you guys had some sort of a relationship. Because Ryan was once previously married, the people have accused you, or at least accused the both of you, because this is a two-party thing, that you guys were in some sort of affair that ended his relationship. From your perspective, right, what was your relationship with Ryan Drummond?
We did not have an affair, absolutely not. By the time that I even became friends with Ryan, he was already working on splitting up with this person. So we were friends for a little while. He began his separation process. It even got to a point where they were living in different homes. And then later on, we began to date, and we dated for about 6 or 7 months. During that process of them completely separated and working on their divorce, because they do have 2 kids. One of them is special needs. So divorce for people with kids, it takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. So when you started getting to know Ryan and having him on Sonic and Tails R, he was already within that process of getting divorced?
Well, actually, by the time Sonic and Tails R was a thing, it was already, at that point, finalized. So that was done. Our relationship was already over, because we were together only for, like I said, 6 or 7 months. So okay. Sonic and Tails R started, gosh, I think it was the beginning of 2020. So by that point, our relationship was already over. His divorce was finalized, and I had moved out to Burbank. And around that point, actually, I started dating my current boyfriend.
Okay. Was there any particular reason why your guys' relationship didn't work out? Was it just like a weird thing with his divorce, or just you guys were just too different, or?
It's just, honestly, it was because he needed to remain, like, up in that, like, San Francisco Bay Area, because of his kids, you know, because of his, you know, his previous relationship, and they obviously both deserve to have their kids in their life. And for me, I have my own kid, and that's just not where we wanted to be. We did not want to be up there. We wanted to be in Los Angeles. So that was a choice that we both made. It was totally, like, amicable. Everything was cool, and we're still friends because of that.
Even to this day, do you guys still regularly chat and everything, or?
Yeah, we're still friends to this day.
So how did the internet go about kind of figuring that out, that this was something that happened between you and Ryan?
Yeah. So oh man. So I put my trust in a few of the wrong people by letting them know. There was, like, a private account that I'd had where, you know, I would talk about a lot of things that were personal. I would talk about things that I had going on at home. I would talk about, you know, just my own personal stuff that I had I was going through, like, you know, therapy and stuff like that. And also I would share about that type of stuff too, and I would talk about the relationship there. There was a time where we had visited each other, and during that time, I was talking about it on that private account, and it was screenshotted by one of the people who had access to it, and I was unaware of this at this time. And it would later start showing up in different places. It had originally showed up on this person. Her name is Lizzy. It showed up originally on her profile because somebody had given it to her, and then it was sort of, like, inconclusive because, you know, weirdly enough, for a little while, I took that private account down. Lizzy had reclaimed it, and so when people went to go try to verify it, they saw that the account was following Lizzy because it was her who had reclaimed it. So for a little while, people weren't really able to really say if it was accurate or, you know, where it had come from. But eventually, at some point, people were able to put it together just because I had a few of my mutuals, like, responding to the account. So they were able to then later piece together it was me. It was like 2 years ago when they had pieced it together, which was like 7 years after the relationship or something. I think it was 6 or 7 years after the relationship was already over with. So yeah, everybody found out much later than, you know, I mean, I'm glad it was later than, you know, that.
Right,
but
it ended way later, like, after the fact, so, like, it was just like, yeah, that was the thing that happened, but it's already long over, so you thought, like, I don't have to think about this again, and now it's getting brought up again.
Was to the point where it trended on Twitter.
Yeah. Was there any reason why you didn't, like, tell people about this relationship? Did it just feel, like, weird because you guys were, like, both, like, people that, like, represented Sega or something, or?
I mean, kind of, right? I do feel like that's not something that I feel like every Sonic fan is. I don't feel like people are going to be good with that information. It's hard to explain, but I do feel like, you know, if you tell a Sonic fan something like that, you know, hey, I'm dating this guy who's the voice of Sonic, I just don't know what to expect from that reaction, you know, because I understand that people aren't able to not everybody, but there are a lot of people who aren't able to see that these are real people, you know, instead of just, you know, Sonic himself. You know, this is like a real guy, so.
Yeah, and I mean, you also, like, your voice work, at least your voice acting cred is doing a really good Tails impression, so I think people might start drawing to the weirdest conclusions with that, you know?
Yeah, and they did afterwards, they did, you know, and it's like, yeah, see, this is kind of why I didn't want to really have this be a thing. I did tell, like, personal friends of mine, you know, during the time. So, like, I did trust personal friends with that, you know, but yeah, public-wise, I knew that was not something I was ready to talk about. Obviously, if we had continued the relationship and inevitably, you know, at that point, if we had, like, gotten engaged or whatever, okay, then I'll talk about it, you know, once it's more set in stone. That's how I've always been with my relationships, though. I don't want to, like, be super public with a relationship and then there's a breakup and then it's a mess. You know what I mean?
I gotcha. And it's not really the internet's, like, business anyway. And in retrospect, like, I'm in a relationship, but I don't make that public to my fans ever. I talk about it, but, like, he's never on camera, and I don't post about him on my socials or anything like that, because it's not really anyone's business. If he wants to be a private person, like, that's something I respect, and I hope people do respect, but some people don't, and it kind of leads to this.
They
so
don't.
you know, just so that we can
and this is why.
right. But just so we can clarify, you said that these were on like private accounts. Was it the Tails Prower Girl accounts that people have been pointing to?
Yep, those are the ones.
Aren't those always so much fun? That's why I never run like secret private accounts. Yeah, right.
Yeah, never that again.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that kind of just covers with Ryan. You guys are still good friends to this day, which is great. We love that. We love peace and love in the universe. But there is another SEGA employee that you had a bit of a, not spat, but like a bit of like a addressment with. And that was Mike Pollock, who is the voice actor for Dr. Eggman. He was also in Sonic and Tails R for a couple episodes. I think he was on there for like episode 4. Maybe he was there at the beginning. There was a dispute that happened where Mike came out publicly on Twitter saying that he never got paid for that role. Could you kind of explain like what happened with that? Was that an accurate thing where you guys never paid him, or?
So technically yes, we did not pay him. Mm-hmm. And that is because when it came to when we got him on the show, we reached out. It was actually Ryan who reached out to him, and he was actually interested in doing it. He said he'd love to, but he wants to make sure that it would not cause any conflict with, obviously, stuff at Sega. So I reached out to a point of contact and asked them about it, and they told me, like, yeah, this is totally fine. He can do this, but 2 things. 1, he cannot get paid. It would breach, like, his contract that he had with them. Legally, he cannot get paid for doing the voice of Dr. Eggman unless it is directly from Sega. And also, 2, second, I hope he's aware that this will spark a lot of fans asking for him to also do stuff for their project. So as long as he's, aware of that, then all is good. So, we talked with Mike and everything, and he had reaffirmed everything with Sega, and so we continued on with the show. And it was not until after the show that we had heard this. About us, not paying him, and it was kind of framed in this negative light. So we did contact him privately about it, to see what was going on. It was to the point where, because he had put that out there, we were getting harassed really, really badly, and we felt horrible because, it had even gone to a point where we had kind of second-guessed ourselves, like, well, did we not communicate something? I don't know, and so we were like, well, maybe we can pay you, because we just didn't want to cause any conflict for Mike. We respect him. So we tried offering that. He did not want to accept it. We did explain to him again that legally we couldn't pay him, to which he was like, oh, okay, well that kind of changes things. And it did get to a point where he wound up apologizing to the team. He has like this website where it's like he posts like rules and screeds, different like statements that he's ever made. And he did wind up putting out like this public screed, apologizing to the team and explaining everything that happened to kind of stop people from harassing us and explaining, what really happened.
Right. Was that like a copyright thing where it was just like Sega like doesn't want people paying him to do his voice of Dr. Eggman because of like copyright reasons?
I mean, it seems to be, I don't know if it's necessarily copyright as much as it is like just there's a legal gray area with you can't have him being paid by a different entity, if that makes sense. Like if he's getting paid for Eggman somewhere else, then that does conflict. There's like a conflict of interest there.
Okay.
Can I chime in on this?
Sure.
Yes.
I think probably within this case for the business, right? If you've got an actor known for playing this voice, and they're in another project when they've been the official voice, it might seem like the project might be official, and there's probably a lot of children. Actually, it's the Sonic fan base. It's all children online who would wind up seeing the project and noticing that, oh, that's the guy who voices Eggman in this. This must be official Sonic media. And that probably presents a boundary for Sega.
I mean, I suppose that would make sense. If it's one of those things where it's like they want anything Sonic related to be on their terms, I suppose that would probably be understandable if you're doing a fan project, right? A lot of fan works do have like a copyright issue, but maybe it's because like official licensing for things can't extend to fan works. Otherwise, you would have to adhere to a lot more under a Sega contract than you would just your own thing. So maybe they just didn't want to interfere in their like with their lawyers and stuff to like sue you up the ass or something like that. So like, I suppose
I think that's probably it. Yeah. And two, we also like made sure to like follow particular guidelines, like making sure there's nothing inappropriate being said. Like for our episode 6, when we had Shadow play or Shadow just on the show, you know, we had talked about maybe having Shadow swear, but just to be safe, because we had Mike, we chose not to, just to be careful.
I mean, he does say "damn" canonically, so maybe you could have gotten away with one. You could have gotten away with one.
I mean, like, I think the rule kind of makes sense and stuff in the world where, like, because I can't think of any much fan media that's not produced. So, okay, there's an exception area for fan media that's, like, weird, where it's, like, produced by some of the creators and stuff, because often, like, voice actors or actors for, like, characters would really like their character and decide to do some fan content of it. But it's rare to see like a project by fans for fans using the official staff. That's a big rarity from what I observe nowadays. Comments, correct me if I'm wrong.
I mean, damn, I'm kind of just impressed that you're able to get in touch with half of these people anyway. But
oh, thank you. I mean, honestly, it came from like doing different work with different people. Like I also like would do these charity streams, and I met a lot of the voice talent through interviewing them for charity events.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Did you used to do that like during your MLP days too, or was that just like once you got into Sonic and stuff?
Actually, no, I did do that during the MLP days as well. Yeah, I would bring on some of the actors for interviews, some of the writers. I'm trying to think everybody like on the top of my head. I think it's mostly writers, actors. I think I also brought in a couple fans too, if I remember correctly. It's been a minute since
I guess I'm just kind of I guess I'm just kind of used to like when something gets big, right? When it's a giant IP, I'm used to like most of the people associated with that IP to kind of be like a monolith. Like these are celebrities. They wouldn't talk down, or they wouldn't like speak to people within their respective spheres or whatever. They're just like, you know, VAs and whatever. But I guess that's just, I haven't been involved in fandom spaces enough to know that no, these people are just like people you can just talk to, which is kind of insane to me to think about. But
no, I agree. I understand.
So, you've mentioned a name when you were talking about Ryan, a name, Lizzy, which will kind of segue into what we're going to talk about next. So in 1993, a person by the name of Lizzy Silva got diagnosed with brain cancer and had a very invasive surgery that could have killed her and left her kind of disabled for a bit. But Sonic the Hedgehog and the Sega Genesis was something that helped her recover from that. This was a story that was featured on the Sonic Super Special, which is the Archie comic exclusive where fans can write into it and like have their stories featured. And Lizzy just happened to be one of those people. Lizzy Silva has been somebody who is known in the fandom because of this. And she kind of had a little bit of a spat with you. And people have, you know, have taken their sides on the things, but like one of the things that kind of made its way around because of a DM conversation with someone named the T-Mob Gaming 2 was apparently saying that somebody by the names of Tails Channel was claiming that their brain tumor story was fake and they were faking brain cancer, and somehow this ended up getting back to you as people accusing you of saying that Lizzy faked brain cancer, like you were accusing her of that. So just to set the record, do you believe that this person has brain cancer, or at least had brain cancer?
Yes, absolutely, yes. Back in the 90s, 100%. She absolutely had it. I have no reason to second guess that or question that. You know, she's not somebody who up until we had our own conflicts, I even knew her. But no, absolutely, she had this, and I believe that. And I actually love her story. Like, that's what kind of sucks about all the conflict with her, is I think her story is incredible. I love her story. It's very inspiring, and, you know, the way that she has utilized it to do, like, charity work and stuff, I think that that's awesome that she has done all of that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of cool, because it's like, from what I've come to understand of her story, just reading it, like, the brain tumor was, like, somewhere around her spine, right? So she had to get that removed, and it was an invasive surgery that could have left her, like, unable to move anything, like, from the neck down. So it's a miracle that, like, in her recovery phases, like, you know, physical therapy, so that she can at least regain that, and having to relearn all that, she turns to video games. And I've seen that happen a couple of times, like, with different disability stories, that video games do help, or at least they're a comfort or something like that. And I think that's kind of an amazing thing. So if it wasn't from, apparently, you allegedly saying she didn't have brain cancer, how did you, like, first interact with Lizzy Silva, if it wasn't through that?
The first interaction I had with her was her and I were invited to go to this event. It was called Sonic and Sega Fan Jam. Mm-hmm. And the showrunner, Patrick, had DM'd me and told me, like, hey, like, I have this other person who's going to be there. She's also going to, like, have a panel and all this stuff. Her name's Lizzy, and I feel like you guys would get along so well. You know, here, let me give you her @ I feel like you guys could be friends. I went to her account, and I was blocked. And I didn't really have any context as for what was going on. So at the time, I had reacted, unfortunately publicly. I was a much smaller account at this time, so shouldn't have been publicly. But I had reacted to her blocking me, to which she did get involved and explain that she had blocked me over these... pretty much interacting with her in relation to, like, conversations that she had with, like, Roger Craig Smith and, like, some other, like, Sonic related news source that at the time I hadn't heard of. Mm-hmm. And it kind of just started this long, nearly 10-year spat between us, where, you know, at this time, she was accusing me of this, and this was not true. And people tried explaining this wasn't true. She wasn't really having it. After that original spat, I kind of walked away from it, like, okay, this was just kind of whatever, you know, whatever. It's not a big deal. Just move on. It doesn't matter. But it did not move on. And you know, she began tweeting things like, Emmy's trying to replace me in the Sonic community, and she's copying my Sonic cosplay, and she's purposely commissioning art of her, like, OC with Sonic specifically to make me upset. And she was reaching out to people. She was reaching out to, like, my friends. She was reaching out to, like, different artists in the community, saying, don't accept commissions from her because she's only doing these commissions to hurt you, or to hurt me and make me upset. And she began reaching out even to Sega. She had reached out to Sega, like, asking for me and Tails' channel, Matt, who at this time actually became an employee of Sega, asking for us to have, like, our tickets removed from this Sonic 25th anniversary party. And it just kept getting worse. Eventually, it led to Lizzy actually DMing Mike Pollock and making a threat in his DMs to Matt, saying that she wanted to put a bullet in his head. And because of that, Mike took that to Sega and said, hey, this is kind of a big deal. And she had her own ticket pulled. Matt couldn't go because they didn't want anything bad to happen to him. Eventually, he was let go because they didn't want something horrible to happen to him, and it was like a liability issue. And it's just kind of, I don't even know how to it's just tumbled, and it's just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's just been mostly one-sided. Me just, you know, at first trying to defend myself, you know, saying, no, I didn't do these things, and, you know, let me know if she's spreading stuff. And people would ask me, like, why does she hate you? And I didn't really know. All I could really pull from was, you know, the post that she was making. And it was just this very huge mostly one-sided situation. And it eventually got to a point where I had moved to Burbank, and eventually she had doxed my information, and she began sending the police to my house and sending firefighters to my house. And this had happened a couple different times. And so then this led to a whole legal situation, where I tried to get a protection order from her, like a restraining order, because I was concerned that she had my address and she was using it to send the police to my house. And even at one point, she was sending letters in the mail to me. We attempted to go to court, but unfortunately, just because, you know, we live in different states, it just wasn't something that was taken all too seriously. So that got kind of thrown out, and that didn't go anywhere. So eventually, me and my family had to move so we could get away from it, because we didn't know what else to do. I apologize. I realized I'm kind of rambling, and I don't know if I skipped any parts of this.
No, it's fine. I was just gonna ask, like, clarifying questions, like, let you just kind of go off and then just ask, like, detailed stuff about what you just said, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, go ahead. If there's anything specifically, I rambled a little bit.
So from the whole reason why you got even accused, like, it came back to you that you were the one that was saying that she faked brain cancer was because of this guy Tails channel. Now you say that he's like is he like a friend of yours, this Matt guy, or do you just know him because you guys both work with Sega?
Both. I mean, yeah, we were friends, and also we were both working with Sega.
Right. So, as far as you're aware, because I'm not asking you to answer on behalf of Matt, because I don't know him personally, I haven't spoken to him. Did this Matt guy ever, like, say she faked brain cancer at any point?
Nope, not at all. And
Okay.
It is a thing where Matt has attempted to try to talk with her and explain things to her, and just like we both have attempted to try to reason with her, and no, this did not happen. This was information that just random people were feeding to her, and then it just made her upset. But none of this was based off of anything. Matt and I have had several conversations about it, and no, he did not feel that way.
Right. I did have something that I just wanted to clarify and ask you about. So, okay. Lizzy tried to reach out to somebody. I'm not sure who this guy is, if he's in relation to Sega or not, but they posted an email from this guy named Jarrell Hall, basically saying that you got into everyone's heads and ruined her because they were going to have her be one of the faces of the Sonic fandom or something like that. Basically, I guess confirming what Lizzy had been accusing you of anyway, which is just kind of like, you know, trying to replace her in the Sonic community or whatever. Is this Jarrell Hall guy someone you know? Is he part of Sega or something? Like, how does he know this information, I guess?
All that information become public, the first thing I did was reach out to my friends over at Sega and asked, who is this guy? Like, do you guys know him? And literally, none of them knew who he was. They had no idea who this guy was. They could not confirm any kind of relationship with this guy. And no, for the longest time, I didn't know who this guy was. I tried looking him up, and, you know, it seems like he has some stuff that he's done, like, in the industry, but none of it is related to Sega. Eventually, at some point, this Jarrell guy actually did email me, because he became aware of Lizzy posting these emails and told me that he was going to potentially take legal action against Lizzy, because he, at least to me, implied that these were not legitimate emails. I can't really confirm or deny that. I don't know this guy personally, but that's all I can really speak on, is that, there's no relation to Sega, and he is denying this ever being said.
Right. And as for, I think the other thing that people have accused you of, in terms of this whole Lizzy spat, is that they say that, like, you have a pretty toxic fan base, right? I think this is something that people have pointed to as, like, this is the harassment that she's getting. Like, tweets, like, people saying that they're gonna beat her ass, that she should have gotten cancer again or something. In terms of, like, anybody trying to defend you by being this hostile and cruel, did you have anything in regards to, like, you know, what you think about maybe toxic people in your fan base, or how people have chosen to respond with vitriol?
Yes, absolutely, and I hate it. I absolutely cannot stand it. Whenever I see it, you know, as much as because obviously I'm not going to see all of it, but whenever I can and I do see it, I do respond and tell them, do not say these things. Like, absolutely not. I have seen some of the worst things said to her. And I get it. These are people who are trying to defend somebody that they are a fan of or they care for. And I can get that. But it helps literally nobody treating somebody like this. You know, Lizzy, I don't back up any of the stuff that she has caused for me. I don't back up I will not defend her actions towards me, but nobody should be treated like that. She is a human and she has undergone a lot of things. And that I think needs to be kept in mind.
Right. So let's talk about the phone number. So I know that you said that she had doxed your information. That's why one of the reasons why you had to move. But she's also been saying that you were equally doxing her back by getting her phone number and trying to call her. How exactly did that play out?
Okay, yeah. Basically, when the police showed up to the house, so this was 3 different times. So the first time when this happened, we tried calling the police station, and they were not able to like confirm 100% like where this was coming from. However, the second time, since this went through the fire station, I called them, and this time they actually provided me with the number. I explained this has now happened a few different times, and they're claiming to be some kind of fan online. I want to know who has my number and who keeps doing this. And luckily, they provided the number the second time from the fire station. So they gave me the number of, we don't know who it is. This is just the number that they called from. And so I went into it was like a small group chat with my friends within one of my servers. And I told them what was going on. Like, hey, like the police, this is the second time this has happened. Like they're at my house again. And I'm going to try to figure out what's going on. All of my friends are reacting, going, oh my God, like this is so scary. And after I got the number, I put that in the small group chat with my friends. And then my friend who then got that called the number so we could try to figure out who it was. Because at this point, we did not know who this was. We tried looking it up online to see if anything had come up. So nothing really terribly helpful came up when we were looking it up. However, when we called it, about 30 minutes later, Lizzy then DM'd my friend who called her on Twitter and said, who are you and why did you call me? Confirming that it was her. And we're like, oh, okay. I guess this was Lizzy. So
Right.
that's how we were able to find this out.
Let's talk about court real quick. Because the transcript is available online. I mean, I've seen most of it. It's, something, a downloadable PDF, but also it's been re-uploaded in, like, screenshots and stuff. What was that experience like, taking Lizzy to court?
It was really scary, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Me and my partner Cam, we were literally at the courthouse for 5 hours. I was pacing. I had a huge binder filled with just everything, all of the evidence that I needed. It was really scary. Lizzy was not there physically. She was instead on like a big like projector screen inside the courthouse. So we got in there, we witnessed a few other people, like it's public, so you can like watch other cases, be talked about. And so we got to mine. I had to go up there by myself. I was sitting, behind a table with a little microphone, and Lizzy was there on camera. And I had to tell the judge why I needed this protection order. And I explained, she obtained my address and she has sent the police to my house and she sent firefighters to the house and, just all of these different things. And it didn't go terribly well, if I'm being honest, because, when the judge kind of turned to Lizzy to be like, well, is this true? Like, did you do these things? She proceeded to mostly just talk about, like, the online drama stuff. She was like, okay, well, but all this stuff happened. I got banned from this event, and she was on Dr. Phil. Did you know that? And then she stole my cosplay design, and it got to a point where, like, the judge legitimately started getting irritated because it was a thing where I don't think she could hear us. Like, there was some kind of interference going on. So she was just kind of talking, and the judge was like, like, Miss Silvas, Elizabeth, can you hear me? And eventually, after a little while, she finally was able to kind of realize that we were that they were trying to stop her from continuing. And the judge was kind of irritated because, you know, we kind of spent a lot of time going over this. It was very quick. Okay, do you have any other comments? I was just like, I mean, not really. I'm just kind of worried that she's going to use the address to, like, go to my house, or, you know, maybe I'll see her at a convention or whatever. Okay, great. You're in Texas. You're in California. There's no need. Dismissed.
Gotcha.
And it was extremely disheartening to have that dismissed so easily, considering that, you know, she was using my address to literally send people to my house. So
Right.
unfortunately, yeah, we did walk away from it, not getting the protection that I was hoping to get.
I could only imagine, considering that this is like a online harassment case, that maybe, God, I could only think that the only thing that could probably apply, because he's right, you guys are in different states, so therefore the protection is a bunch of states in between you that she would have to travel to if she even had the money.
Right.
And if she doesn't, then there's no need. The only thing I could probably think of is maybe like a cease and desist or something like that, just something to get her to stop like talking about you online or something. But even then, those are really hard, because like it's one of those things again where you have to prove why this person needs to stop talking about you or something like that. Or not even that, like, even you can just type one up yourself and just send it, and like people will be like, this, even if it's like legitimate or not, it's like, this is bullshit, I'm not gonna stop talking about it. So it's like, I don't know how to get it to stop other than you just block them, I guess. But was Lizzy like,
and honestly, oh sorry.
no, I was gonna ask, was Lizzy like on like a Zoom call or something? Is that why she couldn't hear you guys, or was she on the phone?
It seemed like it was a Zoom call. It was a video call. So yeah, it was, I don't know what happened though. There was like a connection problem, because she was talking, and everybody in the room, like, they were trying to get her attention. Like, at some point some guy like came up and was trying to like reconnect like the microphone with the judge, because they thought maybe like something was happening maybe on our end. But yeah,
Right.
it was really strange. It seemed to be like a Zoom video call.
It sounds like fucking chaos. Just utter
It was.
craziness.
Oh my god. I was so anxious too, because I didn't know what to expect. I was anxious, like, what if she traveled to be here? Like, I'm scared. I don't want to see this girl physically. It was terrifying. It was so terrifying.
I suppose your saving grace was a shitty Zoom call connection was the only interaction you've ever had with this person. Like, not in person, but like, you know. So
Yes,
I think that covers everything with Lizzy, unless if you had anything else you want to address. Does she still to this day continue to try to reach out to you and everything?
Right now I haven't heard anything like as of terribly late. I just know that she still is watching my account, because she does still actively post about, like, against me. Like, for example, like I got like a music gig on Fantasy Star Online, and because of that, she was posting things like, "Oh, it's time to boycott this." And so yeah, from my understanding, she's not reaching out. I haven't gotten anything directly, but she does still monitor my social media. Right. Unfortunately.
Did she, by any chance, like, post anywhere, like, because you said that Sega gave her a notice that would ban her from the convention that you guys were both going to? Was that something she ever, like, posted online or anything, or?
She did. She actually posted the letter directly. Okay. Which, oh my gosh, like, yeah, she posted that. It had a lot of her personal information on it, so I made sure that when I put that in I have a document that does have everything, and I filtered that out, because yeah, I think she accidentally shared a little too much.
Gotcha. So you have been kind of compiling over the last however long this has been going on, over a decade, I suppose, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
All of the incidents of her, like, reaching out to you and your friends and your family and stuff like that, and you posted that to Twitter?
Then I put that on Twitter, yes.
Right.
And yes, it just has every as much as I can. There might be some stuff, to be honest, that I'm missing just from years ago, and maybe I just haven't thought to put it in there, because this has been 10 years worth of stuff. But yes, her reaching out to my mom, my brother, just all kinds of stuff that I felt was very important to include in that document, just for the matter of my safety, because I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what she would do. I don't think she's going to do anything crazy, but having my address and using it against me to do that, it's scary. So I document for the sake of my safety.
Sure. And in regards to the document, do you know what like the overall reaction to it was when you posted it initially?
It was just, yeah, I mean, a lot of people were obviously very upset about the situation. I had a strong outpour of support, and just a lot of people saying we're just really sorry that this happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and because for a little while there was like this public, uh, she had put out a public like apology, and a lot of people were kind of left in the dark when that apology kind of didn't really mean anything. So that's why I wound up putting this out, because then a lot of people were kind of confused. Why is this happening? Didn't she just apologize?
Right.
But yes, it was mostly extremely positive in support of me, and just disappointment. You know, it sucks because she did apologize, and we thought that we were able to kind of move forward with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't, and I made sure to, like, when it came to posting that, I reminded everybody, do not attack her.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I don't believe too many did, when I did put that document out, because I reaffirmed it several times not to.
Right. And is she like what's her status like in the community, like in this space? I know she's probably known just because of that Sega article, but like afterwards with this whole spat with you, like did she acquire some form of infamy over this or?
Yeah, no, unfortunately, yes. Within if you are within the Sonic community, most people know who Lizzy is because of her reputation, because of the things that she has done, not only to me but also to Matt, and other people have also spoken out on. She reaches out for help, and usually that help is help me destroy Emi's reputation. And if they are not wanting to do that, then she will not be your friend, and she will try to attack you. And that's unfortunately been a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a lot of people in the community know this and know kind of her whole deal.
Right. I wasn't sure because I know that like people probably knew her if she's getting invited to cons because she got featured in this article. I assume that like she's probably a well-known figure. I wasn't sure if like this whole situation was what she is most known well for, but like I think most people would probably point to, oh, she was the girl who was featured in the Sega thing once and then she went crazy or something.
Right. Well, I mean, and she does, don't get me wrong too, she actually does have a positive like circle of people who she, like, from my understanding, she like will post like merch videos and stuff like that, and it seems like she has like a small little corner of people who are um behind her. I think it's Instagram and like TikTok, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And so like there is something positive for her, and I'm happy that she has that, but a lot of people are aware of that, and so if that is a name that gets brought up, most people unfortunately know what kind of is attached to it.
Sure, that's unfortunate, but hopefully, I mean, she can probably like walk past that and kind of rebuild something that's probably not based on just hating you. That would be, the happy ending for everybody.
It really would. When she had apologized, to me, me and some of my friends, we tried helping her. We were encouraging people like, no, she's changing, and we even gave her like a little guide on how to like draw Sonic that we like made specifically and personally for her, to try to teach her how to like create her own content. And I gave her a bunch of advice on like, maybe you could like make a charity stream, and maybe you could do that. Like, she could have these things, and I think that if she puts in that effort, like, she could have such a positive what am I trying to say, a positive
like community base on the online, or just
yeah, I couldn't find the word for it. Thank you.
just a better reputation overall. Just people, not associating her with this crazy shit.
We're making a positive impact. I think that that's the best situation in the end, is her making a positive impact.
I agree. And I mean,
sorry, there is actually one other thing too I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
Because it is something that I've seen taken out of context. And that is this tweet that I have, it's been screenshotted for a while now. It's me, I'm tweeting at this guy, I think it's like Gabriel Castro or something. And the quote, I believe it goes, jealous of attention. She believes that she should be getting, more attention or whatever it was, because I'm a pretty, or no, I'm sorry, I don't want to get the quote incorrect, but it was.
I think I have it. It's somewhere.
If you have it,
yeah,
thank you.
Gabriel
That would
C.
help.
Media, jealous of attention. She feels she should be getting attention for beating cancer when I'm just a pretty cosplayer.
Yes, this screenshot has been spread around. This is kind of like the main thing that she does share, and it has been taken horribly out of context. I do want to clarify that and explain that I wish I had worded it better, because at this time I was quoting something that she herself had said on her Facebook. On her Facebook, there was a post where she was attacking me, just saying a lot of very demeaning things, and she, near the end of it, said, I'm sorry, but like, I think a girl who beat cancer deserves a lot more attention than some like, pretty face, some bitch who stole my costume. And so when I was saying that, I was trying to explain to somebody my only theory as to why she was coming after me, because somebody had asked, why is she doing all of this? And I said, I think she's jealous of attention. This is what she said. She said that she deserves more attention. I wish I had worded it better, because years later, without that context, it doesn't look too amazing. But I wanted to provide that because it's important.
Right, yeah. And because I think this is important too, I think there have been controversies in cosplay circles of like stealing costume designs, because someone will like put in a lot of effort to like make their own interpretation of a costume from a character they like, and then they see that same costume from somebody else because they follow the process. Because a lot of costume designers will post their entire build from start to end online, mainly because of cosplay contest reasons. You kind of need like an entire like build explanation when you enter into these circle or these competitions. It's either like in a video format or in like a pamphlet. So cosplay theft is something that people have seen before. Could you kind of just explain like what costume is she talking about? Like what did you steal from her?
Okay, yeah, let's talk about that. She is referring to a Sonic cosplay, a good cosplay of Sonic the Hedgehog. Yes, she does accuse me of stealing her design. The only issue is that I made the design before I knew who she was. I had already designed it. I did not know her at the time. And I'm just going to be honest, when it comes to cosplaying a character like Sonic, I just don't feel like there's too many creative ways to go about it. To me, I just threw on a blue wig, got some blue ears, and I wore like a skin-tight blue suit with like a tan belly. The gloves and the shoes. To me, I don't know too many other ways to do it. But no, I did not steal her design. I didn't even see her design at that point. I think that if you were to Google Sonic cosplay, you're probably going to see a lot that just so happen to look extremely similar, because it's just, there's not a lot of ways to go about it. I think that if we're talking about maybe a different character, that would require something maybe where you want to put in a little bit more creative input, I think that's totally fair game to, question that. But like something with Sonic, it's just, there are the basics that you want to include in your costume. And maybe the only difference I've ever seen with that, like with Sonic, is maybe some people will like spike the hair, but for me, I just left it down.
Right. Not to be like too condescending to you or anything. I'm sure your cosplays are wonderful, but let's be frank on what this is. You're just saying that it's just a blue hair, it's just blue hair wig and ears. It's not that deep.
This was a lazy costume. This was not. Yeah, I did not put a lot of thought into this. I was just like, oh yeah, a little skin suit and some, some hair and wig, some hair and ears. Like that's it. I did not put a lot into this.
You don't really need to think that hard when it comes to Sonic. It is a blue hedgehog that's got like that whole anime spiked hair thing, but like it's blue guy. Wear blue. That's all you really gotta do.
Yeah.
If you want to keep it simple.
Yeah.
Just a creature.
Just a creature.
I mean, like
guy. Just a little blue guy.
Well, the whole thing with it is it's like it's one of those things where it's like if you're trying to cosplay something with a simple design, there's only a few variations you could make on it before it becomes unrecognizable oftentimes, and I think the whole thing is keep it simple's probably a key principle for cosplaying in that front of cosplaying Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sure, especially if you don't have a lot of money,
Yeah.
Which I didn't. I didn't have a lot of money, so I was just going with the basics.
Right. Just keep it simple. It gets the job done. It looks like the character. You did a good job with the budget you had.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. So I think the only realistic way we're gonna get through some of these next ones are just by going through names. Because at this point it's just a list of names of like people who are just like either they've been seen having an issue with you and people are like, this is a fight that they had, and it's like, okay. Or just like names of people that maybe you've had associations with in the past. So let's just not even rapid fire, just I'll name off a name, I'll kind of explain the association, get your say on it. First name by a person or a content creator by the name of Chuggaaconroy. Apparently they have been accused of solicitation of someone underage. I don't know that much about it. I'm sure somebody could probably correct me or whatever. Creepy accusation. Yeah, please do. I don't...
Chuggaaconroy is accused of having weird DMs with someone underage and solicitation of photographs from Lady Emily, not this Emily, of feed pics. That's the accusations. Yeah.
Right. So apparently people have said that you've taken his side on this. There is a tweet, I guess I'll read. It's just in a reply to something, and I don't know what the full context is. It's just somebody screenshot and said, this is her defense. It says, now I would understand it easier if this was a younger person learning about how boundaries work, but even with autism, you can't just learn not to mail someone's shoes and then ask them for feet pics, and trying to sexually roleplay with friends through doing it and being told not to or something like that. So people are like, this is their defense of that. What is your personal connection with Chuggaaconroy, and do you stand by anything weird that they have done or not done?
I have no connection with Chuggaaconroy. I've never known him personally. I've never worked with him, just nothing. There's no connection there. Mm-hmm. This tweet is actually the opposite. This is me actually saying, no, what he did is not okay, because a lot of people online were using his autism as an excuse for his behavior, and this was me responding saying, no, I would get it maybe if this was like a kid or something and they're learning about certain boundaries, but this is not, you shouldn't have to go to all of these advances to have to learn not to do this. This was actually me shitting on Chuggaaconroy, not defending him.
Gotcha. Okay. I figured that's what it was, because it doesn't read like a defense. Like, people are just like, this is what they must think of autism. And I'm like, that doesn't read like that. It's not like they're being insulting. They're just saying that, like, even with autism, you gotta, don't be stupid. Like, autism isn't really an excuse for that.
I'm sorry, in my opinion, I don't think you can use autism as an excuse. And that was me responding to people trying to excuse his behavior.
Gotcha. All right. Next creep on the block. You've been in a couple of videos with Toonkritic. There was a Sketchpad interview, and apparently he did a cover of Wonderbolt. It says piano version by Emily Jones. I don't know if you guys actually did a collaboration, but apparently he sings Wonderbolt, and the piano version was apparently by you. I don't think we need to discuss what Toonkritic did. That's kind of a well-known story at this point. Thoughts and opinions. What are they?
Okay, so let me quickly explain the cover thing. That's the piano piece that I used. I collaborated with somebody. He went by Ivory Brony, and that is Ivory Brony's piano piece that he made for me to use for a cover of Wonderbolt, which then Toon used on his own cover. I have nothing to do with that. That was just the instrumentalist made the instrumental public, and so a couple different people used it for their own covers. But yes, he did interview me at one point, but then yes, eventually that information came out about him, and he ran off the internet, and I wanted nothing to do with him at that point. Like, absolutely not. That was disgusting when I found out about that. And also too, I would later find out from like a close friend of mine that this was somebody who was a fan of my work, and that made me even more devastated. So yeah, no. Yeah, it's gross.
That's rough.
That broke my heart.
You didn't have like any other chance to like confront him about this or anything, or like have a final say like fuck you, leave me, never talk to me again kind of thing, or did he just kind of go whoop? bye, you know.
He just, yeah, no, by the time I saw everything, all of his stuff, like, I think at this point, I don't remember if it was Skype or Discord. I want to say Skype, but I don't remember 100%. But he had deleted everything at this point by the time I had read everything. So I remember just going, well, yeah, that takes care of that, you know, fuck that guy.
Yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Next, creep on the block. AnimatedJames has you listed starring in one of his C student playlists. I'm not sure what this is. I don't know. I'm not familiar with AnimatedJames, but he has you quoted here, or not quoted, but starring in a couple of projects of his. AnimatedJames is another one of those that I'm not too familiar with, other than I know he has a fart fetish or something like that.
The accusations became a little bit bigger than that. I don't know the finer details myself, but it is more than a fart fetish, I will say that.
Okay, he's a creep. Thoughts and opinions, Emily. What do you got to say about that?
Well, actually, I don't know what these further accusations are. I just remember that, like, so I was on the C Students pilot, and then by the time of the second episode, he wanted to go a different direction with some of his characters, so I stopped recording for him anyways. And
Right.
by the time I had heard about all the fart fetish stuff, he deleted all of his contact information and ran off the internet. So if there were other accusations, I don't even know if I've heard them. I just remember that he got outed for the fetish and then ran, and I had never talked to him again.
Right. You just had the one thing you worked on him for. It was more like a business relationship. You guys weren't like friends or anything.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, like, we had talked a few times. Like, I remember seeing him at like conventions and stuff, and he seemed fine. He seemed nice, but you know, you don't always know. You know, this was mostly a working relationship where I just did this thing for C students. And beforehand, he was going to have me do one of those Sonic versus My Little Pony character things, but it wound up falling through.
Gotcha. All right.
I'd like to interject right here because I know that people will mention this if I don't. Emily Jones has also worked with MandoPony in the past. I don't need to go into what he's accused of here because I talk about that in the actual video, but we were planning on asking Emily about him. It simply slipped out of the list that has 20 million things on it. If you want my personal opinion, we shouldn't hold collaborations with people before their controversies against others. It's one of the reasons that I'm calling a lot of the information out there dubious. Bringing up the fact that Emily Jones worked with Toonkritic is just not a good point against her. Everyone worked with Toonkritic when he was relevant. It's one of the things that people like Toonkritic do. They're fantastic at networking. Cosmodor also did it too. They ingratiate themselves to a community and get associations with everyone.
Let's talk about Wrath of Nazo. So, Wrath of Nazo was a fan project started up by a couple of names that will be brought back up later. One of those being Gamer Guide 7 Aces. I never know how to say his name. And one of the lead actors was this guy by the name of Spirit of the Blue, who was apparently voicing Sonic. And this leads to a little bit of a spat you had with BlueEyedFox, who accused you of apparently sleeping with Spirit of the Blue in order to get a voice role over them. I don't know if it was directly for Wrath of Nazo exactly, but they do mention the Tales from Misadventures in their DMs. People ask him about it. So let's talk about Wrath of Nazo. About your whole thing with BlueEyedFox. First of all, let's just get this out of the way. What is your relationship with Spirit of the Blue exactly?
Oh man. So yeah, Spirit of the Blue was a guy who I was friends with for a while. He did Sonic, you're right, for Wrath of Nazo, but he also did Sonic for this other project called Sonic Misadventures. Mm-hmm. And so all of this is actually tied to Sonic Misadventures directly. I've never been on Wrath of Nazo. Like, that was not... I have never been on that project. That was not a conversation. That's unrelated. I think that came from maybe a weird game of telephone. Mm-hmm. But the project that we're referring to is Sonic Misadventures. This was something that was headed by, actually, my friend Matt was one of them, and then a few other names as well. And basically, BlueEyedFox was kicked off of the team because she was causing a bunch of different issues. She was causing drama. This was something that Spirit of the Blue would actually bring up to me, and I would just do my best to kind of support him through it. Like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I don't know this person, but I hope things get better. And eventually, at some point, they kicked her for all of this drama, and at that point, they needed a new Tails, so they did a public audition. They actually it was a public vote, so there was 3 different Tails actresses, and I was actress number 2, and people on Twitter publicly voted who they wanted on the role for Misadventures, and I just so happened to be voted in. This would cause a huge issue between, BlueEyedFox and I, where she had accused me of stealing this role from her, taking it from her, sleeping my way to the top so I could get it, and this was not the case. Spirit didn't even have control of who was on the cast. This had nothing to really do with that. This was everybody else who wanted me on there. But once I had gotten that role, it wound up causing BlueEyedFox to kind of develop this very one-sided hatred for me. This would cause her to start constantly posting about me. She actually became friends with Lizzy because of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of deal. So the two of them started kind of working together to reach out to people and tell people, don't work with this girl. She's evil. She stole my role. This would cause her to do a lot of really awful things. Like, she made a Discord server that she would bring people into, and it was dedicated to, we're gonna put all these horribly damning things out about her. We're gonna make a website about her. They're photoshopping pictures of me, primarily Blue-Eyed. She's photoshopping photos of me, with bruises all over my body. She's photoshopping semen on my face. She's photoshopping me to look like Frankenstein, and at one point even posting them and making it her public Twitter banner, and she changed her name to the True Tales. And at one point, it had gotten really, really scary because all this was kind of going on. There was even a point, and this is a different private account I had. Again, horrible experience with private accounts, but I had one, and it was a general one for just all of my friends. Very different to the other one in relation to Ryan. That was a much smaller space, but this was kind of all of my friends. And a friend of mine who we had our own kind of spat because we were kind of politically arguing. We had a lot of political issues. He was very for Trump, and I'm just very liberal. We had our own problems, and then he became friends with her, and he gave access to his account to Blue-Eyed so that she could read through my private account, and even, got a hold of this photo that was meant for, in jest. It was this a picture of a gag gift that I had from a friend of mine. It was a purple suction cup dildo. I put it on my knee, and I took a picture of it for this account because it was just supposed to be funny. And Blue-Eyed, she screenshot this, and she spread it around to different people. She gave it to this 12-year-old boy who tweeted it at me. It had gotten everywhere, and people were starting to slut shame me. People were making weird assumptions about, I guess the morality standpoint of owning a dildo but also being a parent, as if those two can clash in some kind of way. It caused a lot of different things. Blue-Eyed, she was somebody who I was genuinely fearful of because her behavior was just so unhinged. There was, there were even conversations that eventually had leaked from her server where she's making sexual comments towards me, but with my child in mind, saying, oh, she probably named her daughter Lucy because she has a loose vagina and she's loose, and and it's just, how would you make a comment at this point? My kid is 5. You're making a sexual remark, it's towards me, but it's with a child.
You didn't have to bring the name up. It could have just been towards you, and you didn't have to talk about her kid at all, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and that was just, I mean, it's just, I don't know how else to describe it apart from unhinged. This was not something I took from her. This was something that she got kicked off for causing drama, and I just so happened to get voted in, you know? And since then, she actually attempted to do this with other people. She reached out to like a content creator who I had collaborated with on like an animated piece, and she reached out to like this friend who I collaborated with saying, hey, you know, you shouldn't work with Emily anymore. You should let me voice Tails. So like there was an intention to do what she was accusing me of doing. So it's just it's a mess. I don't even know how else to describe it apart from just a very very huge mess over getting a Tails role for a series that wound up getting canceled anyways.
All of this for nothing, effectively.
It didn't even happen. It didn't even come out.
So, where did she get this idea that you were sleeping with Spirit of the Blue? Where the fuck does that come from?
Well, she used to be good friends with Spirit, and then at a point, because Spirit liked me and started spending more time with me, you know, these were like conclusions that were made because of that.
Did Spirit of the Blue ever have like any sort of romantic interest in you? Is that where she thinks this is coming from, or?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes. Spirit, you know, he had feelings for me, but I did not return them. I communicated to him like several times that I was not in the right headspace to, you know, have a relationship. I had my own stuff going on. Like at this point, I'm still, you know, living in a kind of a chaotic situation at this point, you know, from home. And I told him I didn't really know him very well, and I wasn't really attracted to him. But he wasn't terribly willing to accept that, but eventually, you know, I kind of had to cut him off because of that, you know. But yes, I had no interest in him. He had interest in me, and that's where a lot of this kind of came from.
Okay. So just because he had like a little bit of a crush on you, she decided to like apparently make that in her entire crusade mission statement, I guess.
Yeah, and most of it I would argue is more towards losing the role, I think, of Misadventures. I think that was just sort of this afterthought for her. I think that she cared a lot more about the role than really her own relationship with Spirit, but that's just me theorizing. You know, it's just weird.
Right. It's not like you're in conversations with them anyway, so like, you know.
No. No.
I just
No.
It's crazy how spiteful she is within those actions alone.
I know. I couldn't believe how bad it had gotten. Like my friend would come back to me, like the one who we'd had that fight, and then like he came back and apologized saying, "I am so sorry about this. Like I did not realize how horrible this like she was." You know, it was not until he was in a call with her watching her Photoshop bruises on me that he got sick to his stomach. You know, and that's sort of what made him realize that he was absolutely in the wrong crowd.
Right. I mean, I don't know very many people who would Photoshop bruises on people for fun. You know, that's just me.
Yeah, I can't think of it. I can't think of many.
No.
Like I don't understand it.
Yeah. So, of course, BlueEyedFox has kind of, as, you know, Lizzy has also done, kind of turned the tables and say, well, your fan base is toxic and have been harassing them nonstop about this whole thing. More specifically in regards to somebody called Radioactive that was apparently ordered to attack you. Apparently, they allege that you were dating this person, Radioactive, and you asked on your behalf to attack BlueEyedFox. What's that about?
Yeah. So basically, oh man, it's so, I'm sorry. It's just
I get it. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely
Yes.
fine. Do not worry at all.
Thank you. It's Radioactive was somebody who, you know, we were friends. He came to me at one point and said he had feelings for me. And I was very upfront with him, saying, "Look, I don't know you very well. Like, you're a great friend, and for me, I don't want to like start anything serious like that with people who I don't know well. You know, maybe sometime down the line, if something were to change, if we did meet in person, maybe we got to know each other, then maybe that's something that could happen, but no promises. We're friends. And you know, after a little bit of time of him kind of hoping to have a relationship and it not really paying off, he went to Blue Eyed, you know, as his, I guess, response to that. And said that I sicked him onto her. But no, like, why? I don't gain anything by having people go attack anybody. And there's no tweets of these attacks either. Like, that, none of this, it's just, none of it's true. It's just coming from, like, some stuff that's like, oh, well, there's part of something here, but then there's also bits of it that there's no truth to it at all, you know?
No, I get that. You know how these gossip sites can be sometimes. You know, when they decide,
Yeah.
like, arbitrarily, like, this is the person who is objectively in the wrong, even though they're just like, well, is there any proof that they're in the wrong? Like, are we basing that on actual screenshots they're taking, or are we just jumping on a hate bandwagon for a bit?
Are we just taking a screenshot of some guy saying it happened? And
Right!
say, oh, there it is.
Sometimes that's all it takes, right? Goddamn.
Yeah. Yep.
So, alright, moving on to the next name on our list here. Let's talk about Super Speed Sonic. Ricardo, as his real name is, has posted this thing on their Twitter about an incident that took place at Sonic Revolution. I'm assuming that's some sort of gaming convention or like a showcase for Sonic stuff, saying that you got them intentionally kicked out of this event. What's that about? What's your relationship with him?
I mean, there's no, like, we were never friends. Like, we never really spoke to each other. This was more so, Ricardo would make a lot of tweets online that a lot of people within the Sonic community space were very aware of, that were borderline kind of misogynistic, very questionable things. One of these comments were about, you know, how women above the age 25, they need to, like, what are you doing trying to, like, get in the date, you know, don't come date me, you should have kids and a whole family by now, you know. And a lot of women did not take well to some of these tweets, including me. And on top of that, too, he had his own run-ins with content creator Sam Procrastinates. And because of this, you know, he's just somebody who has just made me feel kind of uncomfortable about them. No hatred, no nothing, like, there's nothing strong. It's just, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that guy. You just kind of just keep my
Wouldn't
distance.
go out of your way to get a beer with that person.
Yes, absolutely. And there was a point at it was Sonic Revolution. You're right. It's a Sonic convention in California, and he was in line to see the actors. However, I share this like long table with all of them. So in order to like be in line with these guys, like he has to pass right in front of me to potentially interact with me. And not to say he was going to purposely come up and talk to me, but a couple of friends of mine who were aware of that discomfort, they messaged me and said, hey, like, just a, you know, heads up, he's in the line, he's getting kind of close to you. So I told my partner Cam, hey, I'm gonna like just step away for a few minutes because I didn't really want to have any kind of interaction. So I left. I spent time with a few of my friends. We kind of, you know, just kind of talking about it, and they were mentioning that they were kind of shocked he was allowed in because he apparently was blacklisted from the other Sonic event, Sonic and Sega Fan Jam. I know I've mentioned that name before. So that event, he, I guess, had been blacklisted because of his own situation with the other content creator, Sam Procrastinates. So they brought that up, along with the fact that there was this entrance that people were using at the convention that people weren't supposed to be using. And so they were just kind of talking about, like, yeah, I mean, we're kind of shocked he's even kind of allowed in here because of what happened. And he has been using the store. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not sure. You know, maybe something's to do with that, but I don't know. Anyways, he's past my table. I'm going to go sit back down because, you know, I had people waiting for me. And I sat back at my table. I continued to interact with fans. And then I think it was probably like 20 minutes later, the head of Sonic Revo came up to me and Cam and said, hey, don't worry, we took care of it. And we're like, what are you talking about? And he's, you know, they were like, we kicked out Ricardo, you know, like you wanted. And we're like, whoa, no, what do you mean? You kicked him out? We don't want that. No, you don't have to kick him out. Oh my god. And they said, yeah, no, that's what you said, right? And we're like, no, none of us said that, and we didn't even know what was going on at that point until they left to kind of reconvene and talk about what was going on, and they came back and said that it was one of these friends who I was talking to. They mentioned, how he has been using the wrong entrance, and they brought up like the fan jam thing and how I was kind of uncomfortable. And I said, yeah, no, I like, look, yeah, like this, he makes me a little uncomfortable. He doesn't have to be kicked out though. Like, it's not like that, no, let him back in. And me and Cam were literally saying, no, bring him back in here. But at that point, Ricardo had already reacted very strongly, which understandably, making the head of Sonic Revo cry. So they decided to just blacklist him altogether. And so that's where that went. And then in the midst of me being at this convention, just trying to get through the day, that post was posted. And we had to speak to them again, like, hey, this is getting really out of hand. Now he's on Twitter telling people that I got him kicked out. And so they said, yeah, we're going to look into it. Eventually, after like the end of the event, I reached out to him. My partner Cam reached out to him. Sonic Revo also reached out to him. We tried to communicate as much as we could. I had even responded myself, explaining my side of that. But this was something that he had never really corrected. But Sonic Revo did reach out to him. I did post that online too, just to keep everybody in the loop. Like, hey, Sonic Revo did explain what actually happened here, but Ricardo never then corrected that information. But that is what my side of the story is. I don't care if some guy who, even if I just hate them, I don't care if they're there. As long as it's nobody who has any intentions on causing some kind of problem, like putting me in danger. As long as it's like that, I don't care who goes to a convention,
Right.
So
That's not your
this was
say.
no, not at all. Like, absolutely, we're all here to celebrate Sonic. It was just this weird thing. Even that night, the friend of mine who had, reached out, like, apologizing, like, hey, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to, like, have you thrown under the bus in all of this. I just wanted to make sure he was supposed to be there because of the fact that he was blacklisted at this other event and because he was using a different entrance.
Right.
So yeah, that's what happened.
That kind of puts you on the spot too, though. I mean, I get that, like, ultimately, a convention, has a say at whether or not you're allowed to be there or not. But it kind of puts you on the spot when they say, like, oh, because you voiced being uncomfortable, we're going to take that as our lead to, like, kick somebody out. And that kind of just puts it on you inadvertently, because you're like, oh, we kicked him out because you said something. And it's like, well, yeah, I voiced an opinion that I had of him, but that didn't equate to please kick this person out. If you wanted Ricardo kicked out, I think you would have just said something. I think you yourself would have said so.
Absolutely, yes. And it was also a game of telephone. It wasn't even me going to Revo and saying, hey, I'm uncomfortable. This was, I'm talking to, like, my group of friends, and then my friend mentions I'm uncomfortable, and then they make a decision based off of that. So you're right. It does
without even talking to you about it.
Yeah, and we even asked, like, you should have talked to us, and they're like, oh, well, we thought that this is just how you felt, and yeah, it was kind of mishandled really poorly. It was. I mean, not a good situation.
Yeah, the least they could have done is at least ask to reconfirm that that's something you felt. You know what I mean? Instead of just, like, basing it off of what your friend said or whatever.
Yeah, like, I do appreciate the people who run Sonic Revo, they are really great people, but I do wish, yes, in that situation, I really wish that they had just checked with me.
So let's move on past Ricardo and talk about Dillin Thomas. Now,
okay.
I don't know if I know that like,
sorry, that's a
he has, like, apologized to you in regards to some things. I'll read the tweet. He says that he is deeply sorry for his recent video. It turns out that the victim associated with the case was an imposter that is out to ruin Emi's life. I've made a massive mistake not looking into that further, and I have taken the video down and will redo and remove the victim's account. So at the very least, in the past, he's been at least friendly to you. At least he's corrected himself about misinformation about you, so that's something. But apparently he and you are not cool for certain reasons, and I just wanted to ask about that. Like, first of all, like, in terms of this victim imposter thing, what is that in reference to? Let's start there.
It's in reference to Lizzy again.
Oh God.
Lizzy. Yep, we go back to Lizzy. Lizzy made a anonymous Reddit account, posing as a guy, saying that I took advantage of him, and it's titled "A Bully Named Emily Jones," if I remember correctly. And it's just all kinds of misinformation, no kind of substance behind it at all. It's just this hit piece on me, and Dillin included this in a video about me. In this Reddit, it actually talks about an experience that I had when I was 16, when I was on the Dr. Phil show. And because of that, Dillin then found out about me being on there. But the initial video was to showcase this Reddit post. It wasn't until he uploaded it and everybody in the comment section pointed out, dude, this guy, like the Reddit, this is Lizzy. And the reason you're able to put that together is because when you click on the account, the only other things that she's posting are things that only Lizzy would post, including art of her own character with Sonic. It's literally her OC character that she's made. And she's talking about how much she likes Kappa Mikey, which is something that everybody knows that she's a fan of, and stuff like that. So everybody was able to very quickly put together, this was Lizzy just making another post trying to spread misinformation. And so luckily, yes, Dillin, he received that information well, and he apologized for it. So he then deleted that video, but then just cut off all of the misinformation from the Reddit, and then proceeded to make a full video just about his new discovery, which was just me being on Dr. Phil.
Right. Was that account, I was able to find it back in. Was it the account called For the Love of Mike with the number 4?
Yep.
Yep.
Yes, that's the one. Yeah.
Oh boy. Lizzy is back in the picture. So
yeah, that is a reoccurring
name, yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you want to talk about your experience with Dr. Phil, because Dillin Thomas is kind of the main reason why everyone knows that this is something that was a part of your life. You don't have to go into details about it, because I know the reputation of the Dr. Phil show is very traumatic for a lot of people that go on there. You don't have to go into details on that, but like, what was that experience having people like ask you about just being on the show?
So I mean, I guess, are you referring to when Dillin made it public?
Like, yeah, like when he made it public, like were people like asking you about it and just like kind of like being super invasive about your experience on it, or like were they making fun of you for being on the show, you know?
Yeah, a lot of people were kind of teasing me. And so basically he put that video up. I became aware of obviously the Dr. Phil aspect being outed, but because he took down the first one with the Reddit part chopped off, I think it took him like a day or so to like re-upload it. And then in that time frame, I decided, okay, this is something that happened to me when I was a kid. After I graduated high school, I wanted to just kind of move on, not think about it anymore. But it's the internet, you're gonna have people figure things out like that. And so I decided, if this is gonna come out, I might as well talk about my experience on it. So I did make a post because of Dillin making that video, explaining what happened, so I could explain just my side of it, and people aren't just seeing Dillin's video and not really knowing all the context for it. But yeah, a lot of people were teasing me and saying all kinds of things, people asking me questions just about how it happened and how I feel about it. And it was not a great experience, but at the same time, ultimately, I'm glad that I don't have to keep trying to not pretend it didn't happen. Like, I'm glad I don't have to, like, it's not a secret, like I didn't want it to be something that everybody knew, because I know there's going to be judgment no matter what, even though I was a child and I was definitely, a victim of that show. Not everyone's going to see it that way, but it's out. It's just, that's part of my life, and I'm glad at least that is not something I have to kind of run away from anymore. Right. However, with this video that Dillin made, he also included photos of my kid in this video without my permission. And so this would then cause me to send in a privacy complaint to get the video removed. Just because I don't want people who these are just strangers uploading videos and showcasing images, videos and stuff of my child, so that's where that kind of led.
Right. Was your child's face, like, not censored, like, inherently on the show? Did they just kind of show that for everybody to see?
Well, my child wasn't on the show. So this was
Okay.
when I was a kid, and I was pregnant. But then Dillin would then dig and, like, look around for things and find pictures and videos of my kid, and then would just kind of show, like, literally pictures of, like, me and my family going to Disney and stuff like that. And it's just talking about it and showing all of this. And it was just, it's not something that a mom really wants to see. Most parents wouldn't want, these random, especially drama YouTubers,
Right.
to have your kid attached to that.
Right, yeah, okay. I thought that your kid was, like, featured on the show and you were trying to, like, copyright, or not copyright, but have a privacy complaint on a clip that wasn't inherently yours or something. But now knowing that, like, he tried to find pictures of your child or something, that is a little weird.
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
It is.
Like, it's
Yep,
weird when
no.
it's weird when people do it to family channels and you're not a family channel. Like,
Right. Like, then I kind of would get it, if, like, oh, my whole YouTube is just video vlogs or something. But no, it was not like that. So seeing
Like,
that, it was kind of horrifying. Like, oh my god.
Yeah.
it's like deciding to be like, this infant private figure who cannot consent to being on camera. Yes, that's my smoking gun.
Yeah, let's put this on a drama video. Like, that's not right. No.
Yeah, it would be one thing, I guess, if it were, like, if your child's face was featured on Dr. Phil and that was just, like, something inherently part of the show that, like, Dillin just kind of featured because maybe he, like, I don't know, live streamed him watching that episode or something. I don't know. But, like, it's another thing for that to not be featured on the show at all and for him to be like, let me go digging and see where this kid is, if this kid's alive or, like, what they look like today because this Dr. Phil clip's old or whatever the hell. That's weird. That's really weird.
Yep.
So
that's
I guess
how it happened, and that's why I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, I guess that then, because people are saying that, like, you were trying to take his whole channel down, but, like, if it was just that video because he was, like, trying to, like, showcase your kid, I guess I kind of understand that, because, like, that kid can't consent to being on a random stranger's YouTube channel. That's weird.
It's just
Exactly.
I can't ever see an actual event in my life where I'm like, I know what I have to do. Expose the child.
Yeah, like let's bring forth the kid now that we're already talking about it. Like, that's so strange.
Yeah.
Some people are just weird.
Right. It's just such an invasion of privacy.
Absolutely.
I agree. And not to mention, Dillin Thomas gets later canceled anyway. So you know what? Maybe you were always in the right. Maybe you just were ahead of the curve. I don't know. Maybe you foresaw the future.
Well, even before he got, like, publicly canceled by everybody, most people in the Sonic community space did not like him because he constantly would pick fights with people. He would make really mean, like, just mean-spirited videos about a lot of people, and because of that, even before he technically got canceled, like, outright, and it got, like, it was very public, I guess public's not the right word, I guess very, like, mainstream, like, everybody, all of these other communities finding out about him. Even then, just people within the Sonic community space were like, oh god, this dude.
He already has a bad reputation.
Unfortunately.
Alright, so this is just a random Twitter user. I know that this is probably not real. This is kind of like a side thing. It involves a lot of different guys, but I said I would rewrite back to it. So the gamer guy, 7 Aces, who was part of the Wrath of Nazo thing, got into a little bit of I was gonna say four-way. That's not a good word for it. He was part of a group of friends, one of which was even Dillin Thomas from later that we discussed. A guy named Lord Danny and a guy named Sisonic, aka Francisco. They were in a bit of a group chat.
Yeah.
talking about trying to get you investigated or arrested or something in regards to a dildo, which you have discussed with BlueEyedFox. Were you aware that these 4 guys were apparently trying to, like, say that they need to call the police on you for a dildo?
Well, I did not know until some of those screenshots began to leak to the public. I found out about them eventually. But yeah, this was something that even from the beginning, like Blue Eyed would say these things, like, how could she have a dildo? She has a child. And my immediate thought is, okay, what what's your mom probably has a dildo? What are you trying to get at here? Like, it's not like this is, a public setting and like the kid, my child's in the photo. This was in the privacy of my bedroom at 3 in the morning. My kid is sleeping. And yeah, this was something that had just kind of sparked, starting with Blue Eyed, and eventually led to this group chat that I didn't know about immediately, but then would find out about once those screenshots had leaked. And it was something. That was something that
truly
Gamer Guide
was.
in particular. It was something like that was something that Gamer Guide in particular, like, he really tried to, like, cancel me over this. Like, he really thought this was going to be like this juicy information that was just going to, like, I guess, ruin me. This is kind of what they thought, I guess. And they did talk about.
God
Go ahead.
forbid, God forbid parents have their own lives. Like,
Right.
the minute you give birth to a child, your life is all about that child, 24/7. Nothing. If everything that you must do is about that one child.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you can't. I don't know if you guys knew this, but, like, when you have sex and you have a kid, you can't fuck again.
No,
Sorry,
what?
you might have to censor that part out.
Oh my
Jesus
god.
But you know what I
Christ.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
that seems
apparently
the
you're not.
mindset here.
Trust me, we're allowed to swear on this channel.
Okay.
It's only my channel. There's no swears on.
Okay. Sorry. As I said it, I'm like, oh wait, hold on.
No, it's
No,
fine.
Don't worry.
it's okay.
Yeah.
People are used to me dropping that particular F-bomb.
Yep.
That's
Okay.
The talk of the S fluid might be a little bit of a surprise for them, but swearing go to town.
This is the weirdest interview I've ever been
Okay.
where I'm like, can we talk about the dildo incident? I never thought I had to ask that question.
Like, what's the incident? Well, you have it. You have one. Okay.
Shit. Did you mention
Yeah.
you mentioned this because you said when you were talking about BlueEyedFox that this was like a gag gift from your friends or something? Like, you didn't even buy this for yourself. You just had this as a joke.
Yes, because, like, I remember I was like 18 and I got invited to, like, a sex toy party, and I was very, like, uncomfortable. I was like, I don't want to be here. This is too much for me. And, like, all of my friends, they're having so much fun, and this is just whatever. And at the end, they're, like, ordering toys and all this, and they wound up ordering that for me just to, like, kind of tease me, and make fun of. It was a gag gift to, like, kind of, like, lighten up. It's not the end of the world, you being at this party. And
Right.
yeah, for a little while I held on to it because I thought it was really funny.
I mean, to be fair, like, my friend used to work at a Spencer's, and, like, you know how Spencer's are, right? They got all the memorabilia of
Yeah.
dicks, and that's what she would get as gag gets, like, dick popsicles or something like that. Like, because she worked
Yeah.
there, she got a discount, she thought it was funny. I'm like, you know what? This is really funny. I don't know if I can eat this with a straight face, but thank you. Thanks.
Yes, no, exactly. And that's how I felt with this. I'm like, well, thank you. I'm not gonna do anything with this, but thank you. It's just, for a little while, anytime I would, like, talk to friends, I'm like, look what my friends got me. Like, I would talk to, like, online people and be like, yeah, this is what, like, my IRL friends gave me. And that was part of that. I just thought it was funny to, yeah, it's just funny. You know?
So was their thought process, like, maybe some sort of, like, because I couldn't imagine, like, having a dildo and having a kid at the same time be an illegal offense. Like, did they think that was it a child endangerment thing? I'm trying to figure out why having a dildo and a kid is at the same time is illegal. Because I don't think it is.
I'll be honest, the immediate thought to me was, why is it that when you find out that I have one, why is it that the first thing you're thinking of is bringing up my child? I think that's really strange.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, like, again, I'm gonna repeat myself. Like, a lot of your moms probably have them. They're just hiding somewhere.
Right. That is a bit of a weird reaction that they're like, oh, dildo, what about her child? Like, it's like, why is that your first thought?
Okay.
Like, okay.
Is. Yeah, that's kind of that's a weird first thing to think about. Like, what about her? You know,
what do those two have anything to correlate? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's strange. So yeah, I was aware of all of that, and I will say this, you know, Lord Danny and I are friends now, and Siskonic did apologize for everything and does not stand by any of that behavior either. So those two, you know, they're cool. You know, the other two, not so much.
Well, they brought up your kid in association with a dildo. I too also probably wouldn't be friends with them either, to be fair.
Yeah. Yep.
So that was strange. Moving on. Let's talk about Solrac. Let's get into the MLP side of things. This was apparently something where people kind of made speculations about your guys' relationship. People have been saying that you were trying to push your kid onto him or something like that, or like that's how, because it was kind of public that your guys' relationship wasn't good, and I think you can probably attest to that being true, given that your breakups were very public. What is your whole deal with Solrac? Like, what's your opinion of him? Like, what is your, you know, statement on your guys' relationship? I know this was several years ago, so nobody cared. Like, it's nothing you need to talk about because you're in a currently great relationship, but people have had comments to say about it, and I was just wondering, you know, what's that about?
Yeah, so I guess when it comes to the relationship at that time, yeah, I would say it was not really a terribly positive relationship. I'm able to look back on some of the positive moments, and I'm happy for those moments. However, I would say that it just wasn't. It was toxic. I would agree with that because he really did not wish to be a step parent, but he still wanted to be in a relationship with me. And that was complicated because for me, I was still, younger, and I felt, okay, well, maybe this is just the reality as like a teen parent, as a single mother who's young. Maybe nobody's going to accept me, for having a kid. Maybe this is just sort of the reality. And I unfortunately let myself stay in a relationship with somebody who would say things like, when I imagine us on dates, I don't imagine a stroller with us. And I would just kind of pretend that didn't hurt. And I would try to like let it roll off because I thought this was just normal. I thought, well, this is how it's going to be probably in any relationship. So whatever, but then we were dating for so long and he was aware of my child since the beginning, and yeah, we broke up in a way where it was just, I don't want to do this because I ultimately I don't want to be a step parent, and I wouldn't put that on anybody. However, I think it is strange to remain in a relationship with somebody for so long if that is how you feel about that. I think that there was sort of a desire for me to fix it. I think that he didn't really want me to just keep my child, and I was not really obviously willing to push on that. And so eventually we broke up, and it was just, honestly, I didn't have a very solid support system at home. And because of that, I was oversharing, and we were both oversharing and talking about very personal things. And we just had this very ugly breakup because of it, like, it sucks because, they were positive things. We traveled the world together and there were good parts of it. But I think that we're both able to walk away from it just acknowledging that this just wasn't something good for each other. If he doesn't want kids, that's okay for him. And for me, I deserve somebody who wants to have my child with me, who loves me and my child. So, no animosity towards him. But yeah, it did obviously end up very public and very ugly.
Right. And I mean, there's certain stipulations in relationships where it's like things that are non-negotiable, right? If he doesn't want to have, like, be in a relationship where kids are already in the picture, don't date somebody that has a kid. That's pretty standard practice. And as for you, if someone's dating you is just like, don't want your kid in the picture or whatever, you can be like, well, I can't just make her go away. She's already here. Like, I'm not gonna choose you over this kid. Sorry. Like, you know.
We were both kind of a part of that toxicity, because I just kind of, again, I thought that it was normal. I thought, well, no one else is going to accept me, so I guess this is just what it is. And I hate it because I look back on it like, God, why didn't you just leave at that point? Just leave. If he doesn't love my child, then I need to leave, you know?
Right.
And it was a good lesson, though. That's
and
one
you're
thing
in
to take away
love,
from.
you know, you want to be, something more than just a mother, so you're in a relationship where he treats you right, and you're just like, oh, this is really nice, this is something for me, and it's not, but, the thing is, if there's a deal breaker in a relationship, just accept that deal breaker's there, and move on, kind of thing. And I get that, like, you want to be your own person with your own relationship that's not attached to your daughter, but, your daughter's a big part of you. And people have got to accept that part of you. Like, not that you guys are, like, a sold package together. Like, you have to, like, but it's, like, you have to at least accept that she's not going anywhere. Like, she's here. Like,
yes.
Either deal with it or don't,
But I would even say, I want somebody who loves my child, too, and luckily I have that now. I do have somebody who loves me and my child, and I'm very, very lucky for that.
Oh, that's sweet.
Thank you.
I'm very happy for you for that, because I'm not a parent, I have never had kids when very young. That's really scary, but, like, I imagine if I were going to be a parent, I would want my people around me to also equally like my kid. Like, if I had, like, this friend who was like, oh, your kid's fucking annoying, I'd just be like, then get the fuck away from me. Like, I can't make her go away. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm sorry, my kid's annoying. Like,
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I understand now these tweets. There's a couple of tweets that were, archived on a gossip site that most of this was archived on from horse.org, rest in peace, because it doesn't exist anymore, but a lot of these were you're saying, like, oh, 2 years later and now you decide not to be a step parent. Like, I understand that frustration, because it's like, you knew that the kid's here the whole time. Like, if that was a deal breaker for you, where you're just like, I don't want this kid around, you should have thought about that 2 years ago, because it's not like I was hiding that from you for 2 years. It's been here. Like,
yes, exactly. I've been completely upfront, literally since the start of the relationship.
Right. It seems a little strange to, like, just be like, I'll date her, but I'll just pretend the kid doesn't exist. Like, that's a little hard to do.
Yeah. It's just not. It just wasn't good for both of us, and I think neither of us knew how to really handle it. And again, I really wish we both weren't oversharing. Like, holy shit! I look back on that, like, God damn it, that's cringy as hell. Why was I oversharing so much?
Right.
Ugh. So lessons to be learned. Do not tell social media everything.
Right. Any ill feelings towards Solrac in current day, or you just have no just blank slate with him, like, he's doing whatever,
I don't know. I mean, it's a thing where we attempted to be friends at one point, but ultimately it just didn't work out, and I have no ill feelings towards him. The way that things have been, it hasn't been great, but I got nothing against him. The other way around, a little different, but I'm not really going to speak on that.
Sure, okay, so, his opinion might be different, but nobody wishes no ill will on anybody.
Yeah.
Right. Alright, so, let's talk about my favorite thing, and by favorite, I mean weirdest thing in this list. Let's talk about Steven Sayers. So...
I knew as soon as you said that, like, oh, here we go.
The only reason this is my favorite thing is because when you explained this to me, like, in the first call we've had, I busted out laughing, because I'm like, wait, is this actually how this is? This is crazy. So let's talk about that now in recorded format, my favorite thing. Steven Sayers apparently was some dude who worked at Sierra Entertainment, the publishers of Half-Life, Team Fortress Classic, Spyro, and Crash Bandicoot. In 2009, Steven Sayers was contacted by somebody and did this sort of interview. Well, I say in 2009, he's talking about an incident in 2009. He was actually contacted, I don't even know when this was. But somebody reached out to him and did some sort of, like, text interview, and this ended up on the internet, of him apparently saying in 2009, you tried to reach out to him claiming to be a 21-year-old who wants to drink and have sex and party and whatever with him in order to get up in the ranks of Sierra Entertainment.
Yeah, apparently.
Apparently. Why don't you tell me about this Steven guy? Who is this Steven guy to you?
Okay. A stranger. This is a stranger online. I don't know who the hell this guy is, apart from what I have now looked up about him since seeing these screenshots. I don't know who this guy is. After Lizzy showed me these screenshots, no idea. Like, after Lizzy showed me these screenshots, I then started to look up who the hell this guy was, because I'm like, who is this? And I looked up, okay, what's Sierra Games? And I've never spoken to this guy in my life. What's crazy is he's talking about 2009, and I'm like 14 at this point. You know, I'm like, you said 2009? Like, I'm just now becoming a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
To which he, if I remember correctly, he even states that all of this happened on Snapchat. Am I right on that?
Yeah, so in one of the screenshots, if I can find it real quick, I don't know if I'll be able to find it. Yeah, 2008 is when he was, working at Activision Blizzard. He met Emily around 2013 or so I guess it wasn't back in 2009. In 2009, I think he's talking about how he used to work at Sierra Entertainment. 2009, he was only working there, I think, on the SWAT series, so that's what might be what he's talking about. He's claiming to have met you in 2013. So, that's what that is, and...
Okay.
So I'm sorry if that was confusing.
2009.
I thought so too. He's saying in one of these text messages he left in 2008, but still managed Activision, like, when Sierra Entertainment merged with Activision and Blizzard. So he said he met you around 2013 or so. Okay, so that makes more sense. All right, I'm confusing myself here.
That does make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't even think that, because when Lizzy showed this to me, that's how I had interpreted it too. Was I remember telling Lizzy I was a child, because there were remarks, if I remember correctly, in these DMs that says, you know, I think one of the people working here, one of us might be like the father to her kid, and I was pregnant as a teenager, and so that's a strange implication to make. And I think Lizzy even pointed that out, saying to him, well, I don't know if that adds up, because she was 16 at the time, and I think he began to backpedal, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a random guy. I don't know who this guy is. There was even a point in time where I considered reaching out to him, because seeing somebody say something like that was just it's upsetting. You know, I don't know who the hell these guys are. It's just some guy just spreading around a dirty rumor that she totally wants me. You know, and when I considered reaching out, I found his Facebook, saw one of his posts talking about his kid being sick, and I just felt like, you know, I'm not piling onto it. You know, what he did, him spreading these rumors, I think that this was shitty, but he already obviously has a lot going on in his life, so, you know, oh well. I decided not to confront him over it, because I didn't want to really pile on, but nope, this is just a stranger online who just made shit up, and then this was in a conversation with Lizzy, and then Lizzy posted the screenshots online, you know, and there have been people kind of running with this idea of me doing this, but yeah, no truth to it at all.
Yeah, it says that reached out to me about 2 years ago, but that was the last time I heard from her. She wanted me to fuck her and go to a party with her. She messaged me on Snapchat. I'm not sure how she got it, didn't respond, and I didn't ask. Apparently this person was claiming you were 20 or 21 at the time, apparently saying that, you want to have his babies or something like that. These are weird things to say about somebody that... And I want to say that maybe he's just thinking it's a different Emily, because Emily Jones, both Emily and the last name Jones is a very common first and last name. So I'm like, is he talking about somebody else? But no, he's like talking about how you try to sleep your way up in the ranks of Sega too. So I'm like, no, you're talking about the Emily Jones. What the fuck is going on? Like, what?
That's a good point, actually. Yeah. And it's going off of information that doesn't line up. For starters, I had a Snapchat, but I didn't talk to people on it. I only downloaded Snapchat back in, like, 2016 just so I could use the filters because I thought they were cute. I didn't talk to anybody on the app. And also, too, after I gave birth, I didn't want to have more kids because actually my birth was traumatic. So for me to be like, oh, I want all these kids, I want your kids, I'm good. I had a very traumatic experience giving birth, and it's just, none of that matters, obviously, but to me, it's irritating because it's just, you're not even trying to be convincing with the stuff you're making up.
Right, it just seems so random and weird. Like, I don't understand. Like, he's saying that, like, you apparently try to harass him, and he mentioned being a sheriff's deputy, and that's what got you to stop, and I'm like, dude, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. This is the craziest
like,
thing
again,
ever.
I really wanted to DM him and be like, who the hell do you think you are? You know,
Right.
but I'm glad I didn't ultimately. You know, it's just situations like that, it's better not to give them that attention because I assume that's what they want out of that.
Yeah, and I mean, like, what kind of conversation could you possibly have? I mean, to be honest, even if you did do something like that, I wouldn't even blame you, but at the same time, it's like, would that be a productive conversation? Probably not.
Right, and I thought about that too. I thought, there's no way this is going to be productive. You know, he's either going to not respond to me, or he's going to deflect, or say that he never said these things, or whatever, you know?
Right. So random. It's
Yeah.
the fucking craziest shit.
It's just weird.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that's so shitty. What a fucking weirdo.
It's just something that, you know, it does happen. Like, not to everybody, but it, you know, as a female content creator, it's, you know, it's not the only time I've experienced people just being, you know, just spreading around rumors like that. So, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I get to a point in my whole online anonymous, what's the word? What am I saying? If I ever get a point in my online infamy where people are being like, yeah, I totally had sex with that person, I'd be like, what in the world? Like, I would just delete my channel at that point. I'm like, just leave me alone. Like, this is the craziest thing ever.
I get it, but honestly, like, that's how you know you've made it, you know?
Sure!
People are just
I guess! Jesus Christ! I guess
like,
that's
I've made it, you know? People are bragging about non-existent sex, you know?
Dude, I can never. That's insane. Apparently, that's something I guess I have to look forward to, is people making up stories about me apparently having sex with random people. I love that for me. That's gonna be so much fun. Thanks for the heads up.
This is not even the only time this has happened a few times. There was one time where it was a kid. This was like a 15-year-old kid, and like a group of people like confronted me over this because this was like a kid who convinced like a large group of developers to like make a game for them, and he was claiming like, yeah, you're making a game and it's going to be for Sega, and like, here's the NDA. And they all came to me because I guess this kid told them that I was going to voice one of the characters, and I, you know, being somebody who is obviously, you know, I've talked with people at Sega, they confronted me, and I said, yeah, none of that is happening, guys. This is not like an official piece. This kid is just having you do a bunch of stuff for him, you know?
Yeah.
And then they brought up, oh, well, I imagine the other stuff's not real either. And I said, what other stuff? And they said, yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, God. And he said, well, he said that he saw you at a convention, and he got like a drink with like one of the Sega reps, and then he proceeded to like have his way with you, and then he tossed dollar bills on your body. And I was like, huh?
What the? And this is a 15-year-old kid. Jesus
child.
Christ.
And you know what I did?
Called the police. I don't know. I would call the police. I would call the cops.
His mother His mother followed me on Twitter because she is like an actress in the industry, and I messaged his mother, and then he literally got grounded off the internet for like 3 years.
Oh my god. Honestly, deserved.
I said,
deserved.
Yeah.
Cause you're older,
like,
you're
no.
an adult. Like, if that was a story that got around, like, even remotely online or, like, whatever, people would be calling you something else other than whatever they've been calling you right now.
Yep.
That's insanity!
Yep.
Oh my god!
People, some of these people, they would run with it, and then it's just more misinformation. And so, yeah, no, I contacted his mom, and I'm like, hey, this is what your kid is saying. This is extremely inappropriate. I'm at this time, like, in my early to mid 20s.
Jesus Christ.
You need to step in, please. And yeah, she apologized, like, I am so sorry. Oh my god, like, he is not allowed on the internet until he is 18.
Dear God. You know what? Deserved. Yeah. I deserved.
Oh. Anyway, sorry, we got a little off track, but
no, but that's insane. That's insane. Apparently, you've been dealing with this for a while. It all tracks. This is the worst thing I've ever heard. But whatever.
When you think about it, you've been having this build up for like years and haven't had an opportunity to properly like do to tell your side,
Mhm. Yeah. No, so absolutely, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Well, it's like when you have stuff like this piling on, like layers after layers that all start to sprout into like trees. Because the crazy thing with online drama is that it's always way more connected than you'll ever expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And yeah.
So these
are especially from the outside looking.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna go towards the next two things are actually kind of like small petty things before we talk about like the big final thing, but I did want to at least address them because they're quick. So let's talk about GoFundMe real quick. You've ran a couple. One of which was for helping you with health stuff, and then another one was helping you move at the time. Coincidentally enough, though, like, during the times that you would run GoFundMes, you would also be posting about certain things you were attending, like Sega-related things, like conventions, or, like, vacations that you were at, like, when you were traveling, and a lot of people have assumed that, like, the money from these GoFundMes would go towards these trips. I know that you are somebody who is, like, in the upper, contacts with Sega, and a lot of these conventions you were in look to be Sega related, so I'm assuming, and I'm just making an assumption here, given your connections, that a lot of these trips probably were sponsored by Sega, given your connections with Ryan and Mike and everything. So, did you ever, like, have to pay for these convention meetups or anything, or was that like a Sega, like, we'll pay forward towards this or whatever?
I would never pay out of pocket for any of these trips. These were things that were covered by others. Mm-hmm. A lot of these were like within the community space, so like going to these different conventions. These conventions themselves would literally like cover flight, hotel, and stuff like that. So yes, anytime I had like around that time, these were all covered completely by other parties. This was not anything coming out of pocket. Literally from the first GoFundMe when I moved, I earned $5,000. I put literally $2,150 on my first month of rent, and I put literally the rest on getting like the moving van and like flying and everything. I did not have the additional money to put that towards anything else. So yeah, me going out and going to any of these conventions, all this was covered.
Gotcha. Okay, so these were things you were invited to as somebody who is like working higher up at Sega.
Working up like in the community space more so than like being like a direct employee, you know what I mean, like being like an influencer. So yes, so these were all covered.
Right, and I believe that the one that's helping you move was raised by you, but the other one that was for your health specifically was not even set up by you. It was set up by Cameron. Is that your current partner? Because you mentioned a Cam.
It is.
Okay.
Yes, Cam. That is my current, and he set that up. This was during this time where my health, it just kept getting worse. You know, after I developed an eating disorder, and I was developing issues from COVID, and I started having like a lot of complications. And so it was not easy dealing with getting the answers for what was going on with my health, because I've been on Medicaid, the Medi-Cal state insurance that that you're given, and it's not terribly high quality. And because of that, we weren't really able to move forward. Every time we would say we need to see this specialist, it would be a month or two until we get the referral in the mail, and just getting through that month or two just so we can get the paper in the mail, and then we have to set up an appointment, and then we have to wait for the appointment, and then we have to go in, and then we have to give them all this information, and then we have to run tests. So we weren't getting anywhere, and we had gotten completely desperate for help. So Cam set that up to try to help give us a fighting chance, and we've put all of that money towards affording the medical bills, towards affording all of the lab work, all of the appointments, everything like that. And we've actually been very transparent in all of our updates about where the money is going to.
Mm-hmm. And just because I'm curious, right, because you said this was something that was like COVID related, or at least after the pandemic, can you kind of explain what MCAS is? Because I'm not familiar with what that is personally. I don't know if many people are. I think it'd be good to kind of explain what that is real quick.
Yeah, so MCAS, it's always been a thing, but it became much more known because of COVID, because it is literally a dysregulation of your mast cells. So in your body, you have mast cells everywhere. And your mast cells, that is sort of what helps the body regulate and handle like histamine and like allergic reactions. That's everywhere in your body. So whenever, you're dealing with like a food allergy, and if you are allergic to that thing, your mast cells react to that thing. However, with COVID, this has become a problem where there are a lot of people who are now having dysregulation with their mast cells, and now you're reacting to everything inappropriately, or at least a lot of different things. For example, for me, I suddenly became allergic to cats. I suddenly developed a bunch of new seasonal issues. I remember eating certain foods, and I would have all kinds of symptoms. I'd have racing heart, high blood pressure, shortness of breath, hives, rashes. I had a skin condition that I had developed from the MCAS, and this was something that was then I already had a pre-existing eating disorder, and it just made the eating disorder get worse because of that. Like, I was already not eating good, and now I'm scared that foods are going to hurt me, so now I'm eating even less. And that's why we got so desperate. Like, we need help, because we can't just sit here and wait months while I'm just eating chicken and rice. I'm getting dehydrated because I'm not eating good. My electrolytes and all of my nutritional values are dipping, and now I'm physically unable to do certain things. Like, I spend days sometimes stuck in bed, or I just have no energy, or my electrolytes will be so low that there was even a point where my potassium had dropped all the way down to 2.2, and my heart almost stopped. Like, it's just MCS is horrible, and it is become much more of a talked about condition, because now long COVID, it's one of these causes, and that's what we've been asking for help to help us kind of work through this.
Right. That sounds fucking terrifying. Jesus.
It's horrifying. Yeah, it's really scary. We've been making really good strides. Like, I was down to like 79 pounds like in the fall, but I'm kind of moving back up a little bit. I've added some more foods. I'm eating like potatoes now again, and I'm really happy about that, because oh my god, chicken and rice for months, it tastes like
oh fuck. I mean, I make a pretty good like honey butter garlic chicken on rice, but that's like variety, it makes the chicken taste different at least.
Right.
But if it were just plain chicken on rice.
Plain.
Oh god, girl, I'm sorry. God damn.
It's gross.
You gotta season your meats, man.
I want to. Oh my god. Trust me. I'm eating like the stereotypical white person, but I don't want to be. I want my spices.
Dear Lord. Oh god. Honestly, that's why I overspice now, because I've been told that I don't know if this was a thing, but people are like, don't spice your meat like a white person. I'm like, what does that mean? And then I searched it up, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's why I've never liked chicken, because that shit was always so bland. And now chicken tastes great to me now, so I'm just like, that's because I season it correctly. I know how to cook things. So
yeah,
we love that. So in terms of like people like trying to talk about the whole GoFundMe stuff, considering it scam stuff, which I don't think is, if you're not paying towards these trips and they're all invite stuff, then like obviously that's not where the money's going and coming from. So that's great to know. But there was somebody who was like asking about like how you're able to afford the trips. I'll read the tweet itself. It says, "I'm curious, how do you afford such a trip, might I ask? I'm very curious given the fact you're so depressed and filled with anxiety and blame Sonic for the lack of good games in 10 years. Unfortunately, most tweets, you delete them when the blue eyes get heated." And of course you were talking about how that tweet was sarcastic, and how you take care of your depression and your health is none of anybody else's business, which I agree, whatever. But I guess people have been accusing you because of this of like faking certain mental health stuff. Could you kind of explain like what this interaction was? Like what?
Oh yeah, happily.
Sure.
Happily.
Please do.
I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna point out that the person who did this, he is another infamous figure in the community, known for causing problems. He goes by Zealous Fox, and this is, there is an entire thread that somebody made that documents every single time this guy has tried like just harassing me. And this thread, if I remember, this was like a 30 tweet thread. It just goes over everything, and that's where this came from. Initially I had tweeted it was an anniversary for Sonic and the Black Knight, which was one of my favorite games. Not like one of the best games, but it was a good game. I liked it. And I made a joke saying like, "Oh, like happy 10 years to Sonic and the Black Knight. It's no wonder I have depression because like, we haven't had a good Sonic game in 10 years." And I was just being funny, or it was hyperbole.
Yeah.
And then Zealous, who's under the replies, giving me a lot of trouble for making that joke. And that's what he makes a comment about me deleting it. I deleted it because I didn't want to have any conflict. I'm like, oh well, if it's there's gonna be conflict, I don't really want to cause any issue. I was just trying to make a funny joke at the expense of my own mental health. But then yes, it did wind up turning into this tweet where he is accusing me of, you're right, faking like my depression and anxiety. And I don't know how else to explain that I would not do that. I have evidence of this. I was diagnosed with depression in 2009, where I was hospitalized for over a week, actually. I had to stay in a hospital because of the depression, because it had gotten that bad. And I developed anxiety after I gave birth to my kid, and I developed PTSD and anxiety disorder and panic disorder. And this, me making these jokes, it just at the expense of myself, because these were kind of prevalent jokes around this point where people are making jokes about that. Like I made another tweet where I said like, Sonic Mania has cured my depression or whatever. It's hyperbole, obviously, but some people, are not able to read that sarcasm. And it did spiral out of control and cause people to then, I guess, accuse me of just faking all of my health issues and faking my mental health issues. But I mean, I've got all of the diagnoses, I've got all of them, and I have all the labs to back up everything. And but these are just a lot of these people, they're just speaking on this because these are people who, they don't like me. Zealous, yeah, again, there's a thread that I can link or whatever, and it's just this guy used to be friends with BlueEyedFox, and there's your connection there.
Another name coming back up.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of these accusations then came from, was Zealous not liking me because he's friends with Blue Eyed. And then that was something that was tweeted, and then other people who are, they have their own thing or whatever, they're latching onto this, and now people are running with it. And I've had to then prove this. There are times where I've had to literally prove my illnesses. There was this girl who was friends with Lizzy, who actually helped Lizzy dox me and do all of the swatting. This girl literally like admitted this, and she attempted to try to claim that I didn't have like OCD, which is another thing that I deal with, and it caused me to have to literally post my the proof that I was diagnosed for it. It is strange, but it is a common thing that I get, even though I have all of the medical papers to back them up. But I will say that, there's a connection between all of them, because these are all people who are friends, or know each other, and that's where this has sort of come from, is like that group of like people like Blue Eyed, and like Lizzy, and like Zealous, and that other girl. That's where it kind of comes from.
Gotcha. So this is just like a question I had, because you posted to your account, because you've been, like, obviously because of these people accusing you of faking mental health stuff, and like even with the GoFundMe stuff, faking like actual like conditions you had. Was the heart monitor that you posted in relation to when you were dealing with the MCAS stuff? Because you mentioned that you had like high heart elevation kind of thing. I was just wondering if that was, this ZO monitor was something related to the MCAS that you were going through.
Well, so this was more so related to the long COVID, because MCAS, the long COVID is like a general term for pretty much any kind of condition that you develop from the COVID infection. So MCAS is one of those things, but another thing that I had also gotten was like very high blood pressure, extremely high heart rate, and it was getting really bad. Like, it was to a point where I will never forget. It was like 2 weeks after having COVID. I was laying down and I sat up and I felt so bad. I felt so out of breath and weak. And I asked Cam, can you please check my blood pressure? I don't feel good. And he checked it, and I had really high blood pressure, and my heart rate was 190 just sitting there. Which, if you know, that's not good. 190 is really, really bad.
Right.
So we went to the ER. They did a bunch of blood tests to check for like damage of the heart, and luckily they were not able to find anything there. So I was then referred to by my general practitioner to go to a cardiologist, and they did a ultrasound on my heart, like the echocardiogram, stress test, different things, and one of those things was what I had posted. It's like a Holter monitor that they like taped to my chest, and I had to hold it on there for, I want to say it was 24 hours, or it was either 24 or 48. I always kind of forget which one, but I feel like it was 24. And then I remember I had to take it off, hit a little button, and then we had to give it back to the cardiologist, because basically what they're trying to do is see if they can find any kind of like arrhythmia patterns that they can recognize that could give them an indication on what's like going on. Right. And so that's what that was. This was just them trying to figure out a pattern. And in the end, they wound up determining that this was from a long COVID induced just inflammation of the heart, which unfortunately does happen for some people. But the inflammation after like a few months did wind up kind of calming down.
Okay, that's good. I mean, thank God. You don't want to have heart problems at 30. That'd be kind of concerning.
It's terrifying. Honestly, I was really scared during that time.
So this is just one last thing, one last tiny little thing that I don't know if that's a big deal, but it's something that I completely forgot to ask you about when I was going through this list. Okay. I was able to find it through something that was posted. You're related, but do you recall somebody named Sparks Channel by any chance?
I do remember Sparks Channel.
Okay, because they were apparently somebody who made art that apparently you stole or something like that. I don't know. Apparently BlueEyedFox is seen here saying that she took his art and manipulated it for 8,000 followers or something like that. I feel like art theft is not like the biggest egregious thing ever, but I should ask you about it because I did kind of forget about it because apparently you tried to take his life over it or something. So I thought maybe that's something we should talk about.
Yeah. Of course, it's important, and that is the story that is kind of pushed. But pretty much what happened was Sparks was a artist who was, he was known for being able to replicate like the Sonic Channel style, and we were friends. Like, we followed each other, and I reached out to him and I said, hey, would you be willing to like do like an art piece for me for whenever I hit 8,000 followers? Like, it's like a milestone post, so it'd be like, thank you for 8,000 followers, and then like have his little art piece on it. Gotcha. And I said, I can pay you and everything. And he told me, oh, no, like, no, you don't have to do that. Like, I just would love to draw it for you. And at this point, you know, I'm a lot smaller. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, well thank you. And basically what happened is I hit the 8,000 mark. I posted it. And then at some point, I began hearing from Blue Eyed and, you know, their group of people saying that pretty much these accusations that you're talking about. And I was just like, what's going on, you know? And I guess it was something to like the effect of, well, she didn't even post the art, you know, and which was weird because I did. And at one point, I wound up just confronting Sparks in DM, saying like, I don't know why you're telling people I didn't post the art. It's right here, and I leaked it to him, and he literally stopped in his tracks and said, oh my god, I've made such a big mistake. I didn't see it. I thought I did not know. I'm so sorry. And I said, no, it's okay. It's not a big deal. But at that point, he was sort of like already roped in with like Blue Eye's kind of group of people.
Right.
And he didn't really know how to communicate because he was really uncomfortable. So he would wind up talking to a friend of mine the whole time being in that group. It was the same group that the other friend of mine was in, where they were watching Blue Eyed like Photoshop the bruises on me and stuff like that. And he was within that group, and he was screenshotting everything and like literally showing it to my friend, which is how a lot of these things became public. Because Sparks he felt really bad about what happened, and so he was sending these updates to a friend of mine saying like, I don't know what to do, like I feel really bad, I didn't mean to cause all of this. But no, I didn't like drive this guy to like suicide. This was a literal miscommunication where he just thought I didn't post the art that he did, but I did, and then I sent it to him, and that was it. But Blue Eyed then took that story and kind of what's the word? Tried to make it sound worse than what it was, I guess. I feel like there's a term for that. I'm not thinking of it.
Right. I couldn't recall the exact
Exaggerated
phrase.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably that. Yeah, I was reading it.
Catastrophized
But
it?
Yeah, like something
yes,
like that.
definitely that. But no, like with Sparks, it was literally just a misunderstanding where he thought I didn't post the art he made for me. But I did post it, and after that he apologized and we were fine. But you know, the other people who then didn't know that, they just kind of continued, including Blue Eyed, just kind of spread that misinformation to people who don't know.
Right. So this should be the last thing, unless if we want to talk about the Saberspark stuff, and like dedicate a whole section to that, because this is just the final thing in terms of your reputational, like, story-wise. Yeah, and then we can talk about Saberspark a little bit. It's been like 2 hours, so, but,
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know.
I'm hungry.
We should be as thorough as possible, though.
Okay.
We won't talk about like the main allegations because we got to get like the wording completely in order and stuff. But we could talk about like the response video and some of the background stuff that's been happening during the investigation.
Sure, yeah, that sounds perfect. Because, I mean, your statement's kind of already out there, and, of course, when Enter goes through the timeline in his video, the things that we already talked about, even in the document that I was able to put together, I think will end up in that somewhat. So, let's talk about Ceci. Ceci was an old friend of yours, somebody who drew art even for your private accounts. They created a document where they alleged that your co-writer for Sonic and Tails R, Doryan Nelson, did something really inappropriate at Sonic Fan Jam 2017 where they apparently cuddled her in her sleep and, like, you know, try to brush his fingers through his hair and was like spooning her or something weird. And when she came to you and asked you about it, you mentioned having kissed Doryan in the past. I don't know if she took that as a confirmation that, yeah, Doryan's a weirdo, but apparently you kept Doryan on your team, and they were like, they made a lot of things where this just kind of spiraled into your friendship kind of falling apart. Ceci's husband got involved at some point, and talked about how all this stuff kind of led to him losing his job at some point. Ceci trying to take their own life. It's a kind of a big document. It's 67 pages, so forgive me if I'm like horribly summarizing this. It's a lot to read.
No.
But
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So let's just get the big question out of the way. is Doryan like a weirdo? Like, is he like a creepy fetish weird guy that like makes people uncomfortable ever?
I'm gonna say no. I think that, what happened here, and this is both of their words, this was them both miscommunicating with each other because, when this was going on, Doryan does talk about how during the whole day, he had picked up on these signals that he believed that she had liked him. And so during this point at night, when there was this, what he says is that Ceci was cuddling him, and then he proceeded to cuddle back and ask, "Is this okay?" And the miscommunication comes from he was asking if cuddling was okay, and she was saying yes. However, Ceci misunderstood this because Ceci thought that Doreen was asking, I guess, if she was okay with like her nightmares because this was something that she had an issue with. So they horribly misunderstood this. Ceci was totally within her right then to feel that discomfort, and they did talk about it. They like talked it out. So when she came to me and did talk about this, I confronted Doryan and said, "What the hell is going on?" And during all of this, I was then shown like that they were talking this out and that they both recognized that they just totally misunderstood each other's signals. This was something they talked about a few different times, and um, in relevance to like the actual document, we wound up talking everything out after the fact. So this was just a very big explosion. We're both kind of explaining different sides. On my side, this happened, and then on this side, this. But we wound up talking everything out, just explaining all the facts of everything, where we're all at, any misunderstandings, any kind of personal feelings. It's all handled. So we were able to move on from the situation. When talking everything out, we helped each other with like little statements to like correct a lot of misinformation, and stuff like that. And we both put them out on our profiles, which just so there's no harm. Sorry, I didn't mean to stop for a second. But
That's all right.
just so there's like no happening to each other. So this was something that we worked together to do so that there is no more misinformation. And Ceci does reaffirm in her document and in that final statement that Doryan is not a predator. This was a misjudgment because they misunderstood each other, and to leave him alone, and that is not something that should follow him. So no, because of them both having that agreement of that being the case, no, Doryan is not some horrible, creepy predator.
Gotcha. Is there any like ill feelings towards Ceci at all? Because I mean, according to their document, a lot of this like caused them a lot of stress and a lot of like emotional anguish to want to take their own lives and stuff. Like, are you guys on good terms? Did you guys end up working that whole thing out, even between you two?
I mean, we talked it out, and it was very like we both were having those feelings of like, there was a point where even I was considering suicide because of all of that too, and luckily because we talked it out, but we also determined through all of these experiences that this wasn't a relationship that we both wanted to continue. So it's like, hey, it's handled, it's talked out, but we respectfully go our separate ways. No ill will towards her, and that's what that is. In fact, we actually have sort of this pact that we've made, and that's if somebody is sort of harassing the other, we reach out to the other person. Ceci reached out to my partner recently and said, hey, somebody's bringing up the drama again, and Cameron stepped in to say, hey, don't harass Ceci, and the same is met for us if that is the case.
Okay. So, I mean, even though you guys are, like, not close friends anymore, at least you guys are all on the same page, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like, it's amicable, right? Like, it's fine, but, when you have something like that happen, it is hard to be friends in that,
yeah.
like, for both parties, right? Like, it's just, that was a lot. That was a lot of stuff. And so we're able to both be adults about it and acknowledge, this friendship is not for us, but it's all handled. All of the horrible misinformation going on both ends were taken care of, and no ill will at all.
That's good. I mean, let bygones be bygones kind of thing. But, it's I can totally understand it being very hard to still be friends after that, because, like, I mean, she made an accusation that you supported somebody who was, like, predatory towards her. It's a little hard to be friends again after that. I agree. It's a bit much.
Yeah. It is hard, right? And it's just, how can you at that point? And that's okay. It's okay. Again, stuff like that happens. Miscommunication happens. Friendship spats happen. Probably not publicly. It shouldn't be public, but in this case, it did. And at least I'm just happy that we're able to move from it. Just move on. And I'm glad that we talked it out. Really, I am.
Right. Now, now that we've kind of gone over at least absolutely everything that I can possibly think of, right? Let's just get this clear. Even if you are, like, the most abominable person ever, let's say that everything that everyone on the internet has ever said about you is true. Does that inherently mean that when it comes to everything about Saberspark, that you just would make this kind of thing up? Or this would be... I can see why people would come to that conclusion that it's like, oh, she's lied before, she must be lying about this. However, given that we just had this conversation, where you gave us, more context to all these things that you've been accused of, even if you were, like, the most evil person ever, I think bad things do happen to bad people. And I don't think that previous controversies that's happened well over 10 years ago should determine whether or not you're being truthful about this now. Because we have to look at, like, the context of what we're talking about. Like, and I get that this is digging up 10-year-old shit, but, like, does this shit line up? Maybe they did lie about a couple things in the past, but does that mean they're lying about this? No, I think if we're immediately jumping to that, I don't think that's fair, because then that means that nobody actually goes through and looks and vets the story at all, which I'm glad it took me a bit, but I did, yay me. But
yes, I'm fair. And I'd say the issue with that mindset is that it perpetuates the idea that, a victim has to be innocent in everything in order for them to be telling the truth, and that's just not true, and it's actually very harmful and silencing to people who do deal with these things, because look, when it comes to bad people, most of these bad people had something horrible happen to them that caused them to be a bad person. No one just becomes a bad person out of the womb.
Yeah, it's like a perfect victim complex, right? It's one of those things where people are just like, if you come out about this sort of thing, you have to be the absolute perfect angel about everything else. And it is harmful, because then it's like Ceci was trying to do, trying to bring all this stuff against you as, like, something that's, like, you shouldn't believe a thing they're saying because of all this. And it's like, well, maybe if you have a sit-down conversation with them, you might get all of the extra context that's been missing. Because, I mean, this is over 10 years worth of your career, right? Things are gonna be lost in the sauce a little bit after 5 to 10 years. So, like...
Even imagine a lot of people now would be able to know who, like, Blue-Eyed is, because I don't think she's online as much now. So there are people who are, maybe they're new and they don't know, like, would not all the information available or easy to find, you know what I mean?
I certainly thought when I first started hearing all this stuff that this was like easily accessible, like, information that people have known about or whatever the hell, but knowing that this stuff is really old and ancient online in the era kind of things puts into perspective, like, well, is there anything missing context wise because it's been 10 years, and are all these people willing to talk about it kind of thing? And so many of them aren't really, because, like you said, BlueEyedFox isn't really online, and I'm sure Lizzy is hopefully being peaceful and doing her own things now. Probably, hopefully. No, okay.
Like, kind of recently, it's kind of calmed down a little bit, but like I said, even more recently, like, she just apparently on her Instagram, there are many comments just about me, and it's just me minding my business, tweeting stuff, and she has something to say about it.
Sure,
so,
lovely.
I hope the best, but
I mean, she seems very determined. At least you can say one of the positives is at least she's consistent, I suppose. It's a horrible way of looking at it, but you get what I'm saying.
No, I totally do.
So let's go into this real quick. I
Okay.
get that this is not an easy thing to talk about because I mean it's Saberspark. He's a big guy. It's a bit intimidating. How what was the earliest that you can think of where you decided to open up about this to at least somebody, anybody at all?
Anybody?
Yeah, just not documented, but even just speaking to somebody, just having a one-on-one conversation, not even online, just.
Okay, just want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
Well, immediately after the first incident happened, I called my best friend. Immediately. I remember I left the room. I was kind of shaking and panicked, and I called my best friend and told him immediately what happened because I didn't know what else to do. So, I mean, I will say I was pretty upfront about it right after the fact. But it was primarily with my best friend. It wasn't really with anybody else. Eventually, after a while, and I did have, like we talked about, Solrac, I opened up to him about it. And then eventually when I was dating Cam, I did open up to him about it. But and I would, throughout the years, I would tell, a friend here and there, but it's not something that obviously I have wanted to tell just about anybody. It's just somebody who I do wind up becoming really close with. It is something that eventually I do kind of bring up because it is kind of a hard thing, and it's something that, every couple of months I start kind of getting upset about it, and I want to vent. And so, every couple of months I'm like, Cam, can we go over this again? Because it's hard. It's not easy, and this is something that I still have struggled to kind of move beyond, 12 or so many years later, and
What happened?
I don't know how to get over it.
What happened?
you know.
Okay, it cut out for a second. I thought that I dropped off the face of the earth for a second. I got scared.
No, you're
Oh.
still here.
Okay, good.
You are
We're still
indeed.
You know what? Phineas is recording too. I'm sure he caught all of that. It's fine.
Enter, are you also
Okay.
recording?
Yes, but don't rely too hard on mine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, mine is gonna have little cute noises of me in my room also.
Great.
So
Okay, perfect. I just
Sorry.
got worried because
I
you
also-
suddenly went dead, and I'm just like, oh god, it's happening again. No.
the
God.
virus
Okay.
is taking its toll.
No, we're good. We're good.
Good lord. So you said that you don't just tell about just about anybody about this sort of thing. You just friends when you need to vent. What was the decision to finally just come out publicly about it? Just tell the mass internet and put it as a public information kind of thing.
Oh, man. So honestly, the last year and a half, I've been kind of. I'll be honest. It's a thing that I've talked about with people, right? Here and there. But I will say that a lot of my trauma in relation to being, sexually taken advantage of in general, in a general sense, this has been something that I've been trying to work towards healing, probably since maybe the beginning of 2024. Something kind of hit where, an unrelated situation. I don't want to obviously go too into my other situations, but I went to this public space where another incident had happened, and I began dissociating really badly, and I felt really, really lightheaded and unwell. And I remember, being really upset because it was this public space that, I wanted to have a good time at, but it was also a public space where one of these incidents happened, not with Saber, but in just a different unrelated thing. And I realized that I have not taken any kind of. I haven't done anything to work towards healing from all of these situations that have affected me this deeply. I can't even go to a mall now without getting completely triggered and dissociated because of a situation that happened in that location. And it made me look back on these other situations with Saber, and others, and I realized that this is something that I really need to start working on. I really need to start being honest with myself about the fact that I've been just trying to just survive. I'm just trying to ignore it, and I'm just trying to get through the day. And that's not helping me. And so, during like the last, I don't know, couple of, I'm trying to think of how long it's been. Maybe the last like 4 months or so, the conversation has come up because of all of the stuff in relation to Black Griffin, because people will bring up that Saber has defended this and has, I've seen all these comments that he's making about it. It's all on the level, it's all cool, because Claire doesn't understand that she has been groomed. It's fine. It's all on the level. We're all good. And I'll be honest, that triggered me and made me realize, I wonder if that's just how my situation has been interpreted. Because I didn't speak out, because I didn't sit there and say, no, get off of me, because I didn't, have something to say about it. Is that just how I'm being interpreted? And that triggered me and upset me a lot. And so, I was talking with my friend Amy about it because of all of the, conversation with Saber being brought up recently. And I just couldn't deal with it, and I just started kind of spilling on how I felt about it. And it was Amy who then said, have you ever thought about speaking up? And I told her no, because I have a really hard time with doing that. I don't know, I don't want to get too personal. It's just I have a hard time with like speaking up about those situations. I lock up. I don't know how to deal with that, and so it was not something ever really on my mind for a long time until this was recommended and the idea had been brought up. And Amy said, I could talk to, Brony Fandalt, who's handled these other situations, and maybe we can help you, and maybe this can help you work towards healing. And I thought, okay, maybe we could at least start with a conversation. And it just, that's how it all kind of started. And eventually it was, okay, now reach out to KP because she's a victim, and maybe she's already working on something related to Saber, so maybe she'd be the right person. And me just kind of putting my trust in the people who I'm talking to about this very vulnerable situation, I just kind of was like, okay, I'll do it. I'm putting my trust in what I'm being kind of recommended, and that's kind of how all of this sort of happened.
Yeah. Was there any particular reason why KP specifically? Because you said that, like, the people recommending her said that she was already a victim. Is that in regards to, like, the Chris stuff? Or just, like, because they used to be friends and Saberspark, blew her off or whatever the hell?
That's, I think, what they were referring to. They were like, yeah, she's a victim of Saber because of the situation with Chris, with the sexual harassment, and Saber not really like doing anything about it. But I didn't have that context until I then talked to KP. So everyone's saying she's a victim too, I'm like, oh, okay, like what happened here, So then I reached out to KP, and then we got into a call, and she asked me what happened. I told my story of everything, and then she kind of delved into all of her stuff going on with Chris.
Okay, I got you. So, just so that the world is aware, because I think a lot of people at the beginning, because of KP's video, which we don't even need to get into, because I'm sure you don't want to speak, because you said you don't want to speak ill will of KP or anything, or you don't have anything against them personally or whatever. We don't need to talk about the state of that video. I think everybody's very aware of what the state of that video was.
Yeah, that would get us sidetracked right now.
Yeah. So, a lot of people, because of the way that whole video was handled, assume that you were somewhat of a manifestation of Brody, Fando, and KP. That you just simply don't exist. I'm talking to you right now, so clearly that's not true. You're very real. You have a voice. Here you are. There you are. You exist. So let's just address that. You are real.
I'm real. I'm a real person. I've got a channel. Yes, I'm a real person with this real experience that happened. I was kind of shocked to see people assume that, but I don't entirely blame them because, You know, obviously, even when it came to putting my trust in everybody, I still was like, I would rather just kind of be anonymous, please. You know, I really, like, it's like I'm kind of coming forward, but I'm still, I don't want
Yeah.
to get brutally harassed, you know, by fans of him, you know, and so I kind of understand why people came to that conclusion, kind of, but
Yeah.
no, I'm very much real.
Well, I don't think. I mean, there's not really a ton of like examples of him like really using his fan base for that purpose, but I can see still the concern just based on like a victim's perspective of like, because he's a big guy, right? He's got a big channel, he's got a lot of followers, so there's always that like concern of like, well, what, he's got a fan base, how are they gonna react? Are they gonna be vicious about it? Are they gonna be rude? Like, you know.
Well, and let's also be completely upfront. You know, I don't have nearly as much as he does, and I still have fans who do this even when I don't encourage them to. Like when I'm telling them, do not do this, I do not encourage this, and they still do it. So even if Saber himself is not encouraging it, it's still going to happen. And we saw this happen actually when Saber responded, and Brony Fandol got pushed to the point of attempting his life. You know,
Right.
because people were harassing him that badly. You know, I've seen these comments and they're very mean.
Right. So let's talk about the response video for a second. Because Saberspark more so kind of says that the whole thing was just a giant hit piece on him, which I think is probably the reason why people think you don't exist. But what was your whole like thought process just kind of watching his response video? Like, did you think it was like good, or like were you like, oh, you know, great response, bro? Like, I don't know. I don't know how a victim would respond to a response video, but
right? I mean, in terms of looking at it from somebody who would be hypothetically a fan of him, wanting to get the truth of like what happened, you know, can you speak on this? I don't think it was very good because it doesn't even really go into it, you know, and I found that to be interesting that he focused so much on this. He doesn't say it, but I will say it is very heavily implied that this was just a manifestation of KP and Brony Fandol. I was shocked to see that because I know he knows who I am. We all know that because Casey acknowledges that she knows who I am, who is friends with Saberspark.
right.
So I was really shocked by that response, honestly.
Yeah, it certainly didn't make sense for Casey to be like, I know who it is, look them up. They got all these controversies. And Sabersparks just being like, this was all just a manifestation of KP and Brony Fandom. They were the one that put this whole thing together, and I can prove it. And it's like, so you're not going to address... I mean, I guess if in his perspective, maybe it's trying to prove a negative. Like, I'm not sure how I can address what they're talking about when it's very obvious that, like, they have this thing against me or whatever. Like, I suppose from a legal standpoint, I get it. But, like... You do exist, like you're here. I
Yes.
figure, you know, you should, if at the very least he should have just said like the story is BS. Like I would have appreciated that more if he just said that shit never happened. Lol. Like I don't understand why he's just like,
right.
yeah, like why he just was just like KP is just trying to make a hit piece on me, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, she does have something against you. That's true, but like. You could at least go through the details of this testimony she was able to get for her video and just go through it and be like, this, you know, try to dissect it in any amount, but, like, he didn't really do that. He just said, nah, just don't listen because it's KP and Brony Fando, which is poisoning the well. That doesn't really address what they're saying, you know?
Yep, no, I completely agree. Like, I mean, a lot of people I would have expected was for him to, like, maybe read it and say, no, it's just all made up. No, all of this is made up, or, you know, maybe just, you know what I mean? Just something to debunk it. But instead, from my understanding, he just makes a comment that says, yeah, it is false, you know, and okay. And then everybody said, oh my God, he beat the allegations.
Right. I mean, I guess he did because, I mean, technically what he's addressing is KP directly because they're the one that put the video out there. So, I mean, from a perspective of I just have to address what KP's saying, sure. But, you know, what he's addressing is what KP's problem with them is. It's not what your problem with them is, because I'm pretty... Not that he's under the impression that maybe you don't exist, but maybe it's, like, for legal reasons. He probably can't if he's trying to do lawsuits and all that other things, you know? I couldn't imagine what the
Makes-
reason is. This is just me theorizing and just kind of throwing ideas out there.
I understand. Yeah, that could be the what am I trying to say? That could be possible. That
Right.
yeah, it's just maybe he is working on a lawsuit against both KP or Brony Fandolin or one of them. Who knows? And maybe because of that, he is trying to be mindful about what he says.
Yeah, maybe it works better. It works. Sorry. I was gonna say it works better in his favor to sue these two people for like defamation if you don't exist. If he just can like prove like this is just something they made up about me maliciously because they don't like me and you don't exist, that's an easy win in court. But since you do exist, I don't know, it's a little harder, you know?
Yeah, a little more difficult.
Because now that he kind of has to address this person who is real that's actually making an accusation that they stand by, you know. Yeah. They might not stand by the way it was put out there, but they still are like, yeah, this was a thing that happened. I'm not like just making this up.
Yeah, like yes, the way that it happened, I don't stand by that, but yes, that's my story.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to happen like with Saberspark? Like, what was your end goal in sharing this? Were you just like, are you like on the whole like let's burn everything Saberspark made, or like what's your like kind of end goal in this?
In all honesty, when it came to speaking out, there wasn't really a whole lot of one, apart from just me proving that I could actually speak up about something, because like I mentioned, I have a history of dealing with assault and I have not been good about speaking up about it. And for me, more than anything, it was just kind of a personal thing of saying no, I'm not okay with this. This has nothing to do with, honestly, it's not anything to do with trying to hurt him, and obviously I acknowledge it does. You know, I don't really want to hurt anybody, but at the same time, honestly, when it came to like the story coming out, deep down I just kind of had hoped, you know, I mentioned I don't want him to reach out, but if he had emailed me and just gave me an apology of like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I had made you uncomfortable, that would have been a very healing thing to receive, you know? Yeah.
With that, even just addressing that part, would you be like, not that I would ever set this up because I don't know, would you ever like be interested in even just talking to Steven one-on-one at all about this? Like, could you?
I don't know if I could ever feel comfortable being in a situation where I'm actually directly speaking to him, like voice with voice.
Sure.
I just feel like I feel like I would be so anxious talking to him because of what happened. Mm-hmm. You know, but if it were like an email conversation or something where I'm able to kind of have my boundaries just there, so it's, you know what I mean? It's just his voice, it just kind of makes me anxious.
Yeah.
But you know, like if he did email me or something, I would be willing to have that conversation with him, you know, mm-hmm. privately, one-on-one, and you know, genuinely, obviously he can't take away what he put me through. Mm-hmm. But I do believe that in some situations, like, there are people who can better themselves. And if he genuinely cared about how he made people feel and the impact that people as large content creators can make and the kind of power that they have, I feel like he would want to be able to make that right. And I would welcome that. If there was an epiphany one day where he realized, you know what? Yeah, I fucked up. I should not have done that. I was kind of taking advantage of her for this reason, and hey, I'm sorry, you know, and since then I've grown and I've changed as a person, and you didn't deserve that. You know, it won't be able to take away what it caused, but you know, that'd be awesome. That would be a really helpful piece to the healing, you know, not that I need it, because nobody should expect an apology from somebody who hurt them to heal. You know, but it would, you know, it doesn't, it helps, you know?
Sure, yeah, and I mean, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, sometimes, like, just kind of bearing witness to somebody's, like, improvement over time is enough of a healing factor. I guess that's for me, like, I've had people that's wronged me in the past, yeah. And I was always under the impression, because I don't like to assume the worst, the absolute worst of people, even with, like, dealing with half of the people I've been trying to deal with in this whole debacle that we've been investigating, like, even with the people that, like, frustrate me, I don't want to assume anything ill will, right? And people that have wronged me in the past, I don't like assuming ill will of them. So when I see them and they're, like, actually, like, doing well in life, it doesn't make me angry. It makes me feel better, because it makes me feel like, oh, okay, they're not that much of a shithead anymore. Thank God. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those things where it's like, maybe their actions show more of, like, how sorry they are, they've changed for the better, than, like, actually receiving that physical I'm sorry kind of thing. Because sometimes you'll never get that. But just seeing that they can be more willing for emotional growth is kind of comforting, I think.
It's comforting. That's how I feel too about, I'll extend that to Lizzy. You know, if I hope that one day she gets what she needs so she can be happy and she can live for herself and focus on her. And if she finally decides, I'm going to kind of drop this whole thing with the Emmy stuff, I'd be so happy for her. You know, it doesn't take away the pain, but I'd be so happy for her. Like, you go, you go, girl.
Right. So what has this whole experience, like, just going to YouTubers, handling your whole situation, and, like, having all this happen, like, you know, people figuring out who you are, even on Reddit and stuff like that, like, how has this whole thing just been? Because it's I could not imagine it going this wrong, like, for, in a victim's perspective, having it go this wrong and ever feeling okay again. Like, what is that like? Like, just bearing witness to all of it.
It's hard. It's difficult, if I'm to be completely, like, transparent. This has been a pretty brain chemistry altering week.
Yeah! Oh, shit!
Like, I have lost so much sleep. I have been just falling behind on all of my personal work. A lot of crying, a lot of reading self-help books, just trying to kind of figure out where I need to go. And, you know, I'm able to take from this situation something really positive, and that is we need to be in charge of our own healing journey. You know, I think that for the longest time, because of my inability to tackle speaking up and being, you know, going, this is not okay, you know, and trying to then avoid it and dissociate through it, I haven't really been in charge of that healing journey. You know, I've vented about it, and you know, I've put my trust in these other people because I figured, okay, well, this kind of works. I am going to speak up, and that's good. That's good, because maybe I'm getting better with this thing. But I'm also still putting it in other people's hands to help me heal, and that was not the right move to do. Like, to go to other people, you know, to be completely honest with you, because you know, it's just this last week it's been chaotic. I've learned that there are going to be some people who they're just they see a situation that is so personal and vulnerable, and they will take advantage of it for the sake of, you know, trying to get the next thing out. Like, I've had so many people, like, just like in, like, Instagram DMs who are like, I know who you are, and, you know, I'm gonna, you know, you better do an interview with me. And like, these are people who are, like, kind of low-key trying to threaten me into these interviews. And these are people who I don't know who these guys are.
Right.
And they're, like, trying to use me for this thing. And these aren't people who are trying to help me. These are people who have already began making content against me, you know. And now it's, well, I'm going to give you a chance. And it's like, okay, you don't care about me. You don't care about my story. You care that Saberspark is a big person. And, you know, I'm part of this, you know. And obviously there are some people who are going to care, and they're going to want to look into it. I'm very thankful that there are people amongst this circle who have been very helpful. But not everyone is going to be like that, you know. It's scary. It's really scary. And I definitely feel that it has discouraged me from wanting to ever speak up ever again. If I'm being honest, like, I've said that out loud a few times this week. Like, I'm never gonna come out about this other stuff. Oh my god, ever. But, you know, maybe that's the right move. Maybe that's not what I need to heal. Maybe it doesn't need to be handled through these other people. Maybe I have a lot of personal stuff that I need to work through to do that. I don't know what that looks like right now, but I know that's what I have to do.
That's wonderful. And I think because of how poorly, like, I don't know how much you know about, like, in terms of, like, these kind of situations being reported to the police, but they suck. I'm just gonna be blunt. They don't take it seriously, and there's, like, a whole backlog, even, of rape kits that are just sitting in dust in boxes for years, never getting tested. It's called the rape kit backlog. It is just thousands. I'm talking, they don't ever touch it. Ever. Hell, even, like, sometimes, like, even when you get into a court setting and they're just like, how many years are we going to put this guy away, a convicted guy for rape, and it just never happens. It's like either a slap on the wrist or just a couple years. Hell, people, like, get put in jail for other crimes, like even, like, possession of drugs for much longer than rape does. And it's like, clearly our legal system does not think that rape is that big of a deal. So it's like, what the fuck do you do? And of course, you see all this content about predator exposés, right? And, like, that's become, like, a whole genre that's, like, almost entertainment at this point. And I'm not unaware, or, like, I'm complicit in that maybe a little bit, but I at least try to, like, use that content style to, like, at least raise funds for a charity or something like that, because YouTubers are fucking useless in this realm, too. Like, you see examples of YouTubers being like, I'm a predator hunter, and it's like, either their stings are fake, or they don't care about victims, or they only care about the view count, or whatever it may be. Like, you're given two options. You're given, go to the police and have them not take you seriously, or go to YouTubers and have them profit and make money off of you. It sucks. It fucking sucks.
Like, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, what are you supposed to do?
Not very good options. And so it's just, definitely through this, the answer is neither. It has to be, we need to go to our loved ones, and we need to open up to these people who we genuinely trust, and we need to do the work in therapy. That's, like, it's not easy, but, like, that's what I want to do, is I need to do more of this work now in therapy, because I think that's going to be the right move. These guys are literally well equipped to handle these situations, particularly people who specialize in that,
Are you seeking, like, any sort of therapeutic intervention? Like, not in relationship to this, but have you been in therapy before?
I have, yes. I've been in therapy on and off because I've moved around, or maybe I've had, like, a therapist who had, not a good fit, but I've had therapy, and, it's helpful for a lot of things, but I also will be completely transparent and say that I have not been able to handle getting therapy for my sexual related trauma. It's hard for me. I lock up. Like, I will sit there all day and I'll oh yeah, it was traumatic with, giving birth, it was traumatic, or this other thing, and but the minute they're like, okay, so let's talk about this stuff, I don't know how to, I stop talking, and I'm like, well, and I can't, it's hard. I don't know how to get, I don't know what's going on there. I haven't been able to move past that, and I didn't realize just how much it had affected me because I was trying to ignore it for so long. But yes, I've gotten therapy for other things, and it is helpful, but I don't know how to speak on how helpful it will be in terms of the sexual trauma. I'm gonna find out, though, very soon.
Yeah. Well, I get that. Like, if your response to all this has always been to just kind of freeze and just, like, kind of clam up and never talk about it, going to a therapist to try to talk about your sexual trauma, that the response always been you just not talking about it, seems rather useless, right? You're just like, I'm not going to be able to say anything anyways, so what's the point? And I think the point is that,
what
like...
am I supposed to do?
Yeah, but I think the point for you, at least, is, like, let's... and I'm sorry if this sounds blunt, right? This thing with Saberspark happened over 10 years ago. And it's not me saying I don't believe you. It's more so, like, it's going to be very hard to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt it happened 10 years later when it was only you and him in a room, right? Yeah. Now, I have a timeline that I think is pretty airtight. I think I've looked through enough 720p 20p footage to say so, but it's not going to be convincing to everybody because everybody on the internet takes these allegations with, in a courtroom setting, it's like circumstantial evidence is great, but they need something hard proof, right? And when it's a situation between two people in private where the outcome of that private interaction is, I didn't feel good about that afterwards, like, I felt like I was taken advantage of, that's very hard to prove to anybody. Not even, like, to the internet, just, like, in court, maybe. However, with that being said, I don't think we need, like, a public trial or a court for you to get healing or for you to feel better. I think what you need is to, like what you're doing now, recognizing that, hey, when I talk about this stuff, even though I acknowledge it's traumatic, I can't actually, like, work through it. And that's, I'm sorry, that sucks. Like, that really sucks. Like, I couldn't imagine if, like, I went through, like, usually when I talk about traumatic stuff, I have a kind of an easy time doing it, but I don't feel good about it afterwards. My problem is I'll open up about it, but then I'm like, oh man, did I over-exaggerate that? Am I overthinking that or whatever? But for you, you just go, nope, nope, not gonna talk, nope, and just ignore it. And I'm like, I couldn't imagine just, like, ignoring it for that long, because eventually it's gonna boil over, you know?
It's hard, like, it's like, again, I'll bring it up to, like, a friend or to a loved one, like, yeah, this happened, but then, like, in terms of the actual, like, let's go into everything, let's work towards the healing, I can't do it, I just can't, it's so difficult. Ugh, God, yeah, no, I understand, though, how you feel with your experience, too, because, like, that's how I would be with the other stuff I've dealt with, like, the other situations, but, like, I'll talk about those other things easy, but it's just this one thing, it's hard to tackle. And, you know, I would actually say, too, that because of the story coming out, that's why everybody, there were lots of people reaching out to me and wanting to talk, and I was just in freeze mode. I didn't know how to talk to anybody because all of these people online are now talking about something so personal that happened and so vulnerable, and I just didn't know how to cope. I just froze in general. People were reaching out to me, and friends weren't hearing from me, and, you know, I just didn't. I was struggling to kind of keep up with everybody and everything, and all of my stuff was falling behind, and, you know, I froze after the story came out in general, and I just, this last week or so, it's just been me stuck completely. You know, I've made some, you know, I've worked through it a little bit, like, you know, I'm still getting things done, but it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you at all for there. The thing about life that I always find so interesting, right, is it's like, it's this flow of ups and downs where it's like, when you get to these, like, downs, it's really hard to fight through things, but the best you can do is do what's best for you based on where you are, you know? And, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think, you know,
sorry,
no, it's okay.
Don't worry. Yeah, you're fine.
I'm very emotional, so I'm sorry. I'm kind of
no, it's
okay.
Okay. No, it's okay. I can totally see this being, like, a teared up moment, because, like, dude, I know we've been kind of all working together, right, on this, and there's points in it where I was really concerned about even the reputation stuff, where maybe I got a little too overly, not angry, just frustrated, because I just couldn't figure out what the fuck was going on, and I'm sorry if at any point I came across as maybe a bit not threatening, but, like, just a bit more confrontational than I normally would be. I think it was just because I really just was like, I need to believe this girl. Like, everybody else has already let this person down. I don't want to be that fucking asshole that decides, like, nah, this person, you know, is not, it makes no sense, our story's not adding up, whatever, that kind of thing. Like, yeah. Especially since so many people have already let you down, I'm just like, I can't be that person. I'm fighting so hard to not be.
I've known Lizzy now for 2 years. I would maybe.
Good Lord, has it actually been that long?
Yeah, I was like, hi, want to come on my podcast?
Jesus Christ, it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
My God.
The reason why, whenever anything drama related happens, she's one of the first people that I go to, is because I know that she genuinely cares, and it's not like she's trying to do anything that's sensationalist like so many of these other channels are.
Mm-hmm.
And when she looks into situations, she's looking in because she cares.
I'm not an investigator. I'm just somebody who gives a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just somebody who cares.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel that it requires empathy. These are, we're going over stories that are vulnerable, and for people that they can be very traumatic. So I feel like empathy is a very important element to this.
Mm-hmm. And also just kind of recognizing, like, just to put it out there for the people, there are certain types of cases, right? Very similar to this one, where not everything is going to be documented, or it can't be for whatever reason. There's a lot of undocumentable sexual assault. It's something that is unfortunate. It's something that will probably not get you any sort of legal justice because the justice system works off of very physical evidence, but it's hard to present that physical evidence when it's either happened over 10 years ago or it's just a private situation between two people and no other witnesses, or like you just don't think in the moment to document it because who the fuck thinks the moment they're raped, let me set up a legal case? They're thinking, no, this was traumatic, what the fuck just happened to me? Right. So I think it's important for people to have empathy for people with cases of sexual abuse and not immediately assume because they don't have everything in front of them, they don't have all of the fucking receipts in the world, that they must be lying. It's just sometimes these things don't get documented because people aren't immediately assuming I need to document this shit immediately. That's normal because it's traumatic. I don't expect somebody who just been raped to suddenly be like, collect every single screenshot you've ever had. Like, that's ridiculous and that's silly.
Right.
It's not realistic. Yeah.
Like the immediate response is, I need to get to safety. I'm not okay. I need to calm down. Just taking care of ourselves and dealing with it. It's emotionally hard, so that is priority number one. We're not thinking that like, oh, I need to screenshot everything and make sure I have this, just in case. I'm not thinking from that lens, and most people aren't. There might be some people who do that, but I'm not really one of them.
Right, and it's not realistic to assume that every single person will immediately build a legal case against someone, because that's even scary in and of itself to be like, I don't want to ruin this person's life. Like, I mean, it's horrible what they did to me, but like, I don't, it's because they're thinking of just like, they're thinking of justice as like a singular streamline, I think, where it's like if someone did something wrong to you, they go to jail, and it's like, well, I mean, I would just rather like an apology or maybe just like a restraining order so this person never speaks to me again, like something. Like, just not everyone's justice looks the same, and that's probably why this whole thing has become a popular thing nowadays, just because people see going to the internet as their form of justice. And I don't think that that's you. I think you're just to a point where you're just like, I don't know how else to really work through this because it's been bothering me for this long,
and this was, again, like a personal thing. This was a personal move to try to work towards that healing and for myself.
And you know what? I hope you get that. I mean, I totally understand this whole situation has been traumatic for everybody. More for you, but it's been traumatic for like everyone bearing witness and just being like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this truly has been a brain altering, like you said, a fucking chemistry altering moment in YouTube history.
Oh yes.
Yes. Oh my god.
But you know what?
Some of these nights where I'm just here and I'm like, I'm not okay, and I don't know when I'm gonna be okay again. Oh my god.
Well, look, I think there is going to be a point where you're going to be okay again, and the reason why I say that is because I think you are coming to a realization that like this is something you can't avoid anymore, and it's not like you've been running from it and now you're scared to confront it. It's like, I'm tired of running from it. And that's a good realization to come to, where you get to a point where you're like, I can't keep running for it. I'm so exhausted. You might as well just pull the Band-Aid off at this point. Like, it's like, this Band-Aid has been on me for 10 years. It's getting old, and yeah, it's gonna hurt to rip off, but like, it needs to come off. Like, this is ridiculous. But I think when most people get to that realization of, this is something I can't run from, not because they're like afraid to confront it, but because they're like, I need to, because I just don't want it to be a part of my life anymore. I think that's where people, like,
Mhm.
end up getting the most healing, and they end up being pretty okay in the end. You know what I mean? And sure, there's gonna be those assholes on the internet who are just gonna be like, you know, say whatever they want, kind of thing. But that shouldn't deter you from your healing. That should be an example of people in the real world are dicks. That's the moral of the
Pretty
story,
much.
I
And
guess.
more so, more too than anything, you know, people in the world don't know the full story. They don't know everything about everybody. And that's not a bad thing. You know, yes, it sucks in these situations where they might not be believed, but I've also learned that there is healing and comfort in this safety space where it's like, you know, people, not everyone does know, and that's okay. That actually that could be a good thing, you know.
Right. Yeah, and I think that, like, regardless, yeah, people are dicks, but also people are entitled to their own opinions, and, like, you can't necessarily stop somebody from voicing an opinion. Opinions are like assholes, everyone has one. But I think that, like, the people who, like, voice a dissenting opinion will be the type of people who will probably always be like that. It's not necessarily towards you directly to, like, get back at you. They just don't believe in that sort of thing in general, because, you know, they're probably super hyper analytical of it. And you know what? Those are the type of people that, like, maybe it's not worth trying to get them to believe it. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, sure, it'd be nice, but...
No, I agree. Yeah, it'd be nice, of course, but it's not realistic, and I acknowledge that, you know. And if I pretty much put it on the line of everybody has to believe me so I can heal, then I'm never gonna heal.
That's so true.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, I thank you for sitting down and having this interview with us.
Yeah.
I know that you're thinking that this whole interview style is, like, you know, not going to help you heal, but at the very least, I hope, like, at least having a conversation about it was comforting. You know, I don't consider this really an interview. I think I consider this a nice conversation with the person online. You know.
Yeah.
If I was quiet or seemed off at all, it's just late and I've been up since 5:30.
Dear
and
Lord,
it's now...
Fred, go to bed.
And I'm just a quiet guy to begin with.
Yeah.
Kind of confirm, Lazy and I are the yappers. John is not as much of a yapper.
Yeah, there's a reason that Lazy's asking all the questions in these things.
I don't know when to shut up.
No, like, you're handling it really well.
Thank you. I feel great about that. You know, funnily enough, before I decided to do the whole YouTube thing, I was in college, right, I graduated high school in 2018. My whole thought process when I went to college, which was community college because I'm poor, was I'm going to do 2 years of community, use that 2 years to move up to university, and hopefully become an art therapist. That was my big thing. I've loved talking to people about, not their trauma, that sounds weird, but I like, you know, getting people's stories and, like, understanding how that might affect how they are as a person. And I don't know, I'm very hyper analytical about, like, human beings in general, because I think it's not fascinating, like, I don't look at you like a specimen. It's more so just, like, I've been there, you know? It's nice to talk to people who've been there and, like, help them through that, and it kind of helps me be like, oh, you know, if they can figure this shit out, I can figure it out for myself too, you know? It's very much like a community comfort thing, you know? So when that didn't happen because of COVID, I just started doing this online, which is, like, trying to be more empathetic towards people, you know? Because that's all I can do now, because all my dreams kind of went down the toilet. But it's okay, you know, I'm doing this now, and it's nice to be in a relationship that supports it, you know, that's so awesome. And having met people that I was watching as a kid, like, 10 years ago, and now we're in a conversation, now we're all friends, and I'm like, what the hell? My life becoming this is really nice, you know, because I get to be, hopefully, more empathetic to people who really need the empathy. That's the way I see it.
Closing thoughts?
Be nice to people. Stop being a dickhead. That's the end. That's all I got.
And Andrew, you got anything you want to say? Yeah, this is going on your channel. It's probably gonna be the longest thing on your channel.
Good Lord.
I don't have anything to say at the moment, but I'll probably add, like, a beginning, an intro, and an outro when I upload it. You know, gotta add in the disclaimers. We're gonna be talking about some hard stuff in this, and
yeah.
that kind of stuff. I don't think I have anything to say in the moment.
Yeah, no worries. Son, it's been lovely chatting. Well, wait. Should I still call you son?
I don't know.
You can call me Emmy now.
Yeah, we're past that.
Yeah, fair. Emmy, it's been lovely chatting with you tonight and
Oh, yeah.
and clearing a lot of this up.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah,
No problem.
Likewise. Thank you.
I hope that I wasn't so mean throughout the course of any of this.
Alright.
No, you're totally fine. It's okay.
I'm gonna stop the recording on my end.
And I think I'm all set.
Before we finish, I want to hit you with a couple of my own closing thoughts. First, I think that I have to cover our ass a bit. In the moment, people don't always phrase themselves in the most lawyer or PR-friendly way. You heard a couple of minutes ago, Lazy Bedhead stated that we were quote-unquote working with Emily. That's not a phrasing that I myself would have used, and I knew as soon as she said it, I had to put in some kind of disclaimer. So, let me clarify. Emily Jones was not allowed into the investigation server at any time. There was always information that we kept from her, and she never had any direct input on our findings or the video. We did outright tell her things like issues that we had with her story, and we gave her a chance of explaining herself. And certain members of the investigation team did express their sympathies. That is what we meant by working with Emily. I told her directly on call that I'd let the facts stand where they may. And even beyond that, if there was out-and-out definitive proof that Emily was lying, I would let it be known to the wider public. The investigation team knew of Emily's controversies, at least in theory, before the three of us directly confronted her about them. My first and only loyalty here is to the truth. So, and interested in keeping things as fair as possible, I will also give another obligatory reminder that all parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, Saberspark included. I myself am not making any statement on whether the allegation is true or not. At the same time, I promise this would be uncensored, and I am not going to stop members of the investigation team from stating what they believe. Now, in interest of fairness, and in interest of being unbiased, I would recommend that you see both Saberspark's response video yourself, and Beckett's video on the matter from the channel Cope and Seethe. That video gets interviews with Ceci, Michelle Kreber, and Claire Corlett, and goes into details about things that I didn't in my investigation video. Between these three videos, you'll get a statement on the issue between almost everyone involved. I will also remind you that this interview here is merely a section in my investigation video. The purpose of all of this wasn't to shoot down Saberspark or anything like this. The purpose of doing all of this was to give Emily a fair shake. Fairness. Either the allegations are true or they're not. And if the allegations are false, you could call KP's video karma. But there is the chance that the allegations are true. And on the chance that they're true, Emily should be able to get the chance to speak on the matter detached from surrounding drama. And on the chance that they're false, you should hear what every person has to say on the matter.